welcome to All About Motorsports. Today we have Chaz Thompson, Inslide Dirt Track Chaz, or as I like to call him, the king of dirt track controversy. Welcome to the show, Chaz. How you doing today, buddy?
All right, all right. Dirt track state of mind is the main deal there. I'm trying to make it to where all my Instagram videos go onto that instead of my Chaz Thompson Facebook page.
You bet.
Uh, I like to kind of hub everything that I do on Facebook on that dirt track state of mind. But when I share it to the sprintcarfan.com message board, apparently, all they see is me and all this talking crap. And like you said, controversy. I like to call it the Buzz King or the King of Buzz or something like that. But uh, trying to get people to spark conversations. I think that's what a lot of things that I do, even though it's maybe controversial or my thoughts and beliefs may be hated upon or laughed upon, that at least it sparks conversation and people are talking about dirt track racing and sprint car racing and around the topics I'm speaking of.
Yeah, you bet, for sure. And, that's kind of how I've always seen it. Sometimes you can have good publicity and bad publicity, but, a lot of times, sometimes that bad publicity, at least they're talking about you. And I think in your case, I mean, you're just a little more bold on speaking your mind than a lot of people are, or ballsy, I guess I should say. You speak directly how you see it, and a lot of people are, they hold their tongues a lot of time because they don't want to piss off sponsors or any of this, that kind of thing. So a lot of people hold their tongues. You got those that really seem to dislike you, and they're definitely not holding their tongues, it looks like. And then you got ones that probably do like you, don't mind you, might not agree with everything you say, but they ain't going to really come to your defense because they don't want to ruin any kind of contracts or anything they may have.
Yeah, I'm perfectly aware of some big names that would love to endorse what I'm saying, but since they're in contracts with certain organizations, they can't come out and say it, whether that be a series or a sponsor.
Yeah, you
Uh,
bet.
and the people who are against me, they are somewhat manipulated, because if you talked to me 4 years ago, my favorite driver is Jeff Gordon of all time, and then my other one is somewhat almost a buddy of Kyle Larson.
There you go. Well, who's that other
So
one?
what do you mean?
Jeff Gordon, and who's the almost a buddy of Kyle Larson?
No, me. I would
Oh,
consider myself almost a buddy of Kyle
okay.
Larson.
Okay,
We,
yeah, I got you. I got you.
I mean, when I was in the sim racing world there before I got into the announcing deal, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
really good on that. And that's how guys like Kevin Swindell, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, those guys
Oh,
know who
yeah.
I even am. And
I remember you in our factor, what we call Dirt Factor. Oh, there's that damn Chaz Thompson dick. I'm gonna wreck him. No,
well,
I'm kidding. I do remember you on there though.
yeah, I mean, I won a lot, and people don't like the winners. So, but the guys like that who are in the real race and they didn't take it so seriously, they didn't mind you as much, because they were more concerned with their real cars. And when I got into the announcing scene and into the real racing scene, that's pretty much how I took it as well. I kind of stepped away from the sim racing stuff because I was more focused on the real racing aspects of things.
Yeah, you
Uh,
bet.
then I lost the weight, got the hot lap, the limited modified, which was a dream to always do, because these race cars aren't cheap,
No,
and I never
no.
had that type of money. And that's when Larson, talked to me at the late night drinkery at the Chili Bowl one year and congratulated me on the weight loss and saw my hot laps and uh, was said I looked good out there and all that. So I mean, we were never on bad terms really, and really I didn't start really speaking about Larson when I was first doing my videos. It was more talking about the dirt track world basically, and like I said, I was Jeff Gordon and Kyle Larson style fan and Tony Stewart and Stenhouse and all these guys till I started researching the history of the sport. And when I started researching the history of the sport, trying to I got into a position basically at the job at the track to where I was in a position where I had to figure out how to get fans in the track, and it was a life or death situation. I had to figure it out to make a good living for myself and for the effort that the track promoter was putting in, and all their family that I was watching them bust their guts. And,
Mm-hmm.
one of the big deals that the promoter said to me before he passed, which was Lanny Edwards, he said, I built these stands because I needed them, not because I wanted them. And
Yeah.
that always stuck in my head. It was like in the 80s, in these days that I speak about a lot, and Doug Wolfgang speaks a lot, and some of these other people who are historians of the sport. you had people lining up to come to the racetracks weekly, nationally, whatever. You had our national names known well across the country. You had regional names known well across the region.
Oh
You had
yeah,
big corporations sponsoring our national drivers, our regional corporations sponsoring our regional drivers, and it was a form of advertisement because we were reaching people and well known.
you
And
bet.
then I was looking at the current situation that I was dealing with, and I was like, how the hell did we go from people knowing about the sport everywhere in the country and knowing our big national names and even knowing our local names in the towns we had these racetracks to basically being a ghost. People down the street never hearing of the tracks, never hearing of the cars, don't know what you're talking about. The number one response you get as a promoter of dirt track racing when dealing with new people is, "Do you mean dirt bikes?" So I started researching the sport, and it all came back to a transitional period of motorsports in the early '90s uh, that basically, I would say, hoodwinked the dirt track world into celebrating sprint car racers who go to NASCAR more than sprint car racers who run sprint cars.
Yeah, okay.
And it was a big trend that was set back there with Jeff Gordon. I also call it somewhat of a cold trickle effect because we know how movies move the masses. With I
Yeah,
mean, everybody
around
wanted
the
to be a
same
fighter.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
Gordon came into NASCAR about 2 3 years after Days of Thunder was released. So yeah, kind of about the same time.
right. And then you see the corporational influence in there. Hendrick was a big part of the movie being made.
Oh
You
yeah.
also see the petrochemical war because CART was the big deal back then. IndyCar
Oh
racing,
yeah.
that was what
Yeah.
took over, and CART kind of got a little bit too big.
Yeah.
That's another aspect in this. There's a lot of things that I talk about, and really that transitional phase, you can look at the petrochemical war between PPG, which was the main sponsor of CART at the time, and DuPont, which was the main sponsor on the Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
And DuPont and PPG is one of the biggest petrochemical battles out there in the paint world.
Oh yeah. Two of
And
them. Yeah, for
they do a
sure.
lot more than just paint.
Yeah.
But you also can look at the battle between CART and Formula One. Kart racing was starting to become almost the Hollywood of the racing world. Formula One had always been on top of the global racing scene.
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
Indianapolis kind of kept Indy racing in America, but kart started to branch out. For those who want to go research it, Nigel Mansell actually left Formula One to go
Go
to
to the
kart
cart.
racing
Yeah.
in this time period. And in my opinion, Formula One kind of started to get threatened. And because a guy in Russia who grew up watching Formula One, he might like kart, because it was a similar style car. They raced on similar style tracks. And I think that was starting to occur. And at the same time, that's really bad for Formula One because they, once again, already been king dog.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole situation there where even a guy like Jacques Villeneuve agrees. And one of the articles I found, I was, talking about this stuff, and then it popped up on my Facebook one day, and I saw it where Formula One kind of worked in his perspective and mind. Formula One kind of worked with Indianapolis to create the split series and also help NASCAR take over the American motorsport scene because that guy in Russia who grew up watching Formula One cannot relate to a cup car. He won't relate to a cup car like he could a kart car. So that protects their global attention
You
if
bet.
NASCAR's on top.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a lot of things I kind of like I was saying, it kind of comes down to dirt kind of being uh, a wounded warrior or a casualty of the war between kart and Formula One that occurred there in the early '90s, where the dirt track fan base was basically used to help NASCAR grow because it was the California sprint car guy versus the man in black. You could say that's Cole Trickle or Rowdy, or you can say that's Jeff Gordon versus Dale Sr. Very similar story. And also you have the corporational involvement of GM. GM and Ford and all these companies were involved with kart, whereas the guys involved with Ferrari or F1 was Ferrari and McLaren, these big giant corporations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and what's going to sell you cars? If I'm GM or Ford, what's going to sell me vehicles more? A freaking Indy car or a Cup car that looks like that has Monte Carlo or Impala on the damn front of the car?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yep.
business wise, it kind of helped them as well in this transitional phase. But and I always get the argument that non-wing racers or sprint car racers always went to the next level. You hear the next level phrase, but wing sprint, for those who want to make that argument, wing sprint car racing came along in 1978 with the World of Outlaws on a next level style situation. And wing sprint, there's even a debate in the dirt world about wing versus non-wing. You know, we get that all the time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And wing sprint car racing was something different. It was honestly, wing sprint car racing nationally was a top was in the position of a top level form of racing. It was above the non-wing scene because you didn't have wing sprint car racers really going to Indy or anything like that. Steve Kinzer and Doug Wolfgang and these guys, they didn't have to because it didn't really make that much more money.
Yeah.
If you and obviously CART started becoming a rent a ride style system too, and getting over the seas guys. So American guys really weren't interested in it. And sprint car racing was making good money. I mean, I documented in one of my best videos for nobody who's watched it. Obviously, you have for a little bit, but go look at my payouts for dirt track payouts for beginners, and it basically shows Steve Kinzer raced for $50,000 at Eldora when Dale Earnhardt Sr. won 47 at Talladega.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't remember this stuff. And back then, when a truck's $4,000, that's a lot of freaking money.
Oh yeah.
$50,000. So I mean, that's kind of where I am today. I don't really, like I say to these Kyle Larson fans, I call him one of the greatest in the country.
Yeah,
but
bet.
For this world that we live in, for this country, this place that we're in, that has no idea what a sprint car is, no idea what a Donnie Schatz is, or anything like that, for them to respect and love our racers just as much as a NASCAR driver, we have to do that too. No matter if it's Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell, we have to love our guys just as much as those guys too. And you look at the dirt world, late model racing is so successful, and they're hurting a little bit, but not as bad as sprint car racing. They got 2 national series over there, 2. And they're pulling in 40 to 60 cars a night. And that's because they don't have this. There's no the late model guy that's in dirt or in cup racing that they're waiting to come back. And when he shows up, he outsells all the T-shirts and everyone finally is at the track to watch him. You know? If you're Bobby Pierce, a young late model racer, or you're Tanner English or something like that, you're the biggest deal in dirt late model racing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a 25-year-old sprint car racer in the Outlaws, oh, well, I guess you just weren't good enough to make it to NASCAR like Larson and Bell were. So that's kind of what needs to change. Is we and like I said, I used to be these people. I used to love this stuff. I used to think it was good for the sport. But at the end of the day, it's nothing but NASCAR welfare. And if these series want to work underneath those guys' wing, you're going to be nothing but underneath those guys' wing. You know, you're going to be a B class. You're going to be a lower form. So that's where my stature and opinion is based from.
And I understood that before I even got you on here today. But the way I see it, and I agree with some of what you're saying there, but don't you think it's really hard? Because we got dirt tracks all across the country. You know, unfortunately, where I'm at in Wyoming, there's only like 2 or 3. But, you know, most of the states that have a lot of dirt racing, they're all across the country. So you might have a World of Outlaws event, per se, at Eldora going on, and there might be people, you know, 100 miles away that I might go to Eldora, but I might just go to our weekly show at the local track. So I think that's part of the problem why you're not seeing as many fans in the stands as far as the national touring level of dirt cars, you know, any kind of dirt racing.
Well, that still goes back to the relevance of the sport.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
more people knew about it than they might like, and they might be there, and it goes back right to the respect. People don't like coming out to watch Robin; they like to come to watch Batman.
Yeah, you bet.
That's why I think it is so important to get the world to not only know about our drivers, but see them as the best in the world. Not like what NASCAR did at Las Vegas with their Haley Deegan promo. They show Donnie Schatz, Here's sprint car champion. It's all great and grand. Then they pull out this guy who's running at the back of the K&N field saying, "Oh, the God-given talent ain't out here. This is where all the hard workers are." Then roll out Haley Deegan after the promo's done there and said, "Oh, well, here's the young winner of all of it." You know, so
Well, she did
that's
win
not going
it.
to get you nowhere. That's not going to get you nowhere, though. And well, she did win it, but which race was harder to win? Let's be honest with you.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
for
Kyle
sure.
Larson's somebody who's led more laps in NASCAR than he has in the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, and he's run more races with the sprint cars.
Oh yeah.
So our field is not no joke. That K&N Series race was probably the easiest race to win at that entire weekend. Even the non-wing, I think the non-wing 360s were there as well on
Yep.
that race
Right.
weekend.
Yeah, and I can tell you this: I can guarantee that them K&N cars weren't going nowhere near as fast as them sprint cars.
Oh, and that's why I'm against the truck race in a way.
Uh
It,
huh.
it- this A B level deal, top level, below level. It's that race kind of puts trucks above outlaws, and you see the attention get that same style. It gets the same style of notoriety and coverage, as it's a little more important than your regular World Outlaw race. And that's how the regular world sees it. You let that truck race keep going on, and you throw some NASCAR Cup races on the dirt tracks, and people start thinking that they started dirt racing, because they never heard of a sprint car. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, let them keep doing this 4 wide or 5 wide parade lap, and most regular people think, yeah, NASCAR started that to salute the fans. How cool, because
Oh
we're
yeah. Yeah, they did
we're
that last week. I seen that. Yeah, and that's something in NASCAR right now. I think they're, and it's nothing against NASCAR, and I'm not going to try to bash anybody here because I'm a fan of all motorsports, whether it be Formula One, IndyCar racing. Heck, I watch, uh, off-road racing, Baja 1000. Try to follow it on the Score website or Best in the Desert. I mean, I watch all forms of motorsports. I love all forms of motorsports. But NASCAR right now, they are in a serious slump, and I get what you're saying. You're relating this in with us because everybody's relating to NASCAR because that's the best marketed series on TV, especially here in the United States.
and
It's
it's very manipulative in its perception to the public too.
it is people that don't
That's why
understand, that ain't true race fans, that haven't been following racing for years, or just true race fans and understand racing as a whole, whether it be a sprint car, a stock car, or late model, or whatever. What hear you? People that don't really understand when NASCAR's trying to bring in this new breed, this new fan. That's something they've been focused on for quite a few years now, which I actually hate to say it, but I think that's kind of been a downfall of their sport. But they're grasping for straws. I mean, they started this, the knockout qualifying kind of deal that they pretty much took from Formula One racing. I don't know how long ago they started it, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe longer. And so they done that, and now obviously we've seen it at California last week where they done the 5 wide salute, which we know where that came from. That came from dirt track racing. We do it every Saturday night, you know.
right. And like I said to Doug, and he's a really good guy. Doug Bushney, I think is his name. Uh, I guess they did 5 instead of 4 because they're just a little bit higher level than us. The lower levels do 4.
And that's something I haven't thought of, but that is a very good point. You never know, and it's
The
you,
perception. It's and that's why a lot of people within the racing world are disagreeing with me because they're too far dug into the racing world.
mm-hmm.
They're not seeing it from the regular person perspective. It will blow your mind how much people have no idea, period, what you're talking about when you bring up dirt track racing or sprint cars. It is undeniable that it is just I guarantee you more people believe in aliens and Bigfoot than sprint cars or late models. People
Oh, I don't know
people
about
laugh at
that.
that
That might be a
statement.
little bit over
No, that's
exaggerating.
not. No, it's not because there's 12 million people in America that think lizard people run the world. So I mean, is there 12 million that know of dirt track racing? I don't know, considering the World Outlaw Sprint cars only have 300,000 liking their Facebook page. So I mean, um, it's a big epidemic, and I like all forms of motorsports too. I come from that perspective, but I've also somewhat diagnosed the problem as to why motorsports overall is in the decline, and that is because NASCAR is trying to be the big dog, one big motherfucker on the block. They're drunk on power. They got drunk on power in the '90s. They
Mm-hmm.
probably do have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder from being second fiddle to IndyCar racing for years, and it's just not working. It's not ever going to work. Racing's going to work when the menu is more than just them. Right now, the menu to the average American of what racing is them. And if that average American don't like them, they don't like racing. It's judging the entire sport. So, and
Yeah.
the way that's going to work is respect and views of other racing, get people to have some variety, and it starts on a local level more so than the national level. Getting our national drivers' attention and all that's very important, but getting a local racer the attention and respect he deserves as well, because there's probably a lot of local racers that are just as talented as a Kyle Busch or as a Kyle Larson that just weren't 14 years old in thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars of racing equipment.
Oh yeah.
Um, and
That's very true.
when racing was successful, the reason these big tours like NASCAR and IndyCar were able to have full crowds is because the local racing scene was so respected and covered by media. A lot of people like to say the promoters are to blame. The media gave this sport attention too,
Oh yeah.
and it wasn't labeled as grassroots either. It was labeled as professional auto racing, even on the local level. That's how it was written and documented.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, I miss TNN, the Nashville network. Didn't was like Thursday Night Thunder. You know, that was something I grew up watching. You know that, and then Speed Vision. They started doing a lot of World of Outlaw races and stuff like that before they went off the picture. And
well,
that's even though those were cable channels, it still was something, and it was live. You know, and Mav TV does a great job, but a lot of their stuff is pre-recorded, which kind of, it's kind of a downfall. Now you get a lot of stuff where you can watch it on the internet, through various different forums like Racing Boys or I can't remember all of them. There's a whole bunch of them you can
well,
watch live.
for those, you got to pay $40
Yeah,
to
but
know
just as well
pay
have it.
to pay to watch Mav TV, you got to know about it. I'm
Yeah.
talking about reaching regular people that have no idea about it and getting the exposure of the teams and drivers. Now, what I was saying about media back in the day is it wasn't TNN, it wasn't just ESPN. I mean, you do have
Mm-hmm.
national sport dirt racing events on ABC and ESPN back in the 70s and 80s, like not ESP, not TNN or something like that. Even though it
Yeah.
was a cable network, I'm talking about mainstream attention for the sport.
Oh yeah.
And locally, though, it was more so newspapers and local TV would do a little segment on results, or if the Outlaws were coming to town, they would cover that stuff. It's not getting that attention anymore because of the ignorance of the sport to people, which is fueled by NASCAR. They want that ignorance because with that ignorance, they can manipulate the regular person into believing that they are the NFL of racing. So that's why I do kind of relate it back to
Yeah.
the NASCAR marketing machine, because they fuel this ignorance to make it to where a person these young guns who come out of nowhere are big giant, Cam Newtons or Tom Brady's. They're able to make that perception and give that perception because of the ignorance of people.
Yeah.
So that is why it does go back to that, and they need to realize what they need. I know the fix for NASCAR. It's very fucking simple. Sorry to cuss there, but
That's
I
all
get
right.
a little upset when I start talking about this because they're never going to listen because they're drunk on money. However, but the fix for them is to get the local and regional and the dirt scene and even the off-road truck scene that, Jimmy Johnson killed their just how Gordon killed Kinzer's and Swindell's dreams and idols. The same thing happened with Evan Evans with
Mm-hmm.
the off-road truck scene with
Yep.
Jimmy
Dirt
Johnson.
trucks. Yep.
Now if you're not Jimmy Johnson or Haley Deegan stepping right through that sport, you are nobody. Or Tommy Kendall used to be a huge name in road racing. People used to know who he was, and they used to sell out. The big deal here is, though, the local racing scene used to create all these fans that went to the NASCAR race once a year. The local racing scene was well known, understood. The drivers were well known, understood as some of the greatest in the country, and
Oh
that's
yeah.
why the Outlaws and ASA and ARCA was also a big deal, because when the World Outlaws came to town with these big nationally known Kinsers and Swindells, and your local in our situation in Texas, Gary Wright kicked his ass. Oh, the whole damn world just went, we got us a damn racehorse here, and it's our hometown hero. So and that local racing scene was so big that when a NASCAR came to town or when a kart came to town, they had all these fans who loved racing. And they didn't necessarily love racing because of them. They loved racing because of that local short asphalt or dirt track event that had these idols or local icons that people like to go and watch and see every week. And see, back before NASCAR became corporately owned, which is what they are now, corporations own them. Back when they were Dell Seniors and corporations got on their car for advertisements, Dell Sr. was one of these local racers, was one of these local icons, and they throw his ass into a Busch car when the big series comes to town. And now you have David versus Goliath. And people came out to that track on Sunday or Saturday to watch their local big time name that was known across the area go up against NASCAR's big national names. See, and that's the drama that was in NASCAR that is not able to occur anymore because once again, drunk on power, money, and manipulation. So you're in
Yeah.
a
Uh,
situation now where it's about buying celebrity status.
yeah.
I,
Oh yeah, I
I said
believe that. I do believe that. And don't you think that NASCAR? I mean, NASCAR, like you say, they got the money and the power right now. They have it. Um, and,
well,
and
and
the
they're barely
and
hanging on to it
but they're
though.
barely. They
Barely
are. I
hanging.
agree with that. But they got the
And that
marketing.
is
They
why.
got the
That is
marketing
why.
platform, and that's their.
That
That's what they're
yes.
controlling everything with. I mean, it's just like if you watched a race on some. Obviously, you did. You seen the five wide salute, but
I
before
didn't
that,
watch it. I didn't watch it. I was tagged in that,
ah,
but I
yeah,
watched.
yeah. But they on the pre-race of that constantly going on about Kyle Busch going to win. Could win his 200th win. Well, he won his 200th win, but that was throughout the three series, big series in NASCAR, whether it be trucks, Busch Series, well, Xfinity, whatever the heck it is now, and Cup Series. So trying to relate, and the people were going back and forth, and that's been their big thing, and I think that's they're trying to grasp at them new fans, trying to get new fans. Oh, Kyle Busch going for 200 wins, and they're reaching that out there. That was their pre-marketing ploy for last Sunday's race, as they was reaching that out there, and people, oh man, this guy might win 200 races. Maybe I better tune into that. Which good
Yeah.
marketing plan. I mean that's a great marketing plan, and NASCAR's trying things to get it to roll. I mean they're trying different things. It's just the competition isn't what it used to be. But
They need organically created drivers. Bill Elliott was awesome. Bill from
you
Dawsonville,
betcha.
the whole town of Dawsonville knew who he was before he even went to NASCAR. So he brought a whole town fan base with him when he went to NASCAR, similar to Dale Earnhardt Sr., similar
You
to
bet.
all these names, Mark Martins and all
Sterling
these guys.
Marlins, Dick Trickles, you bet.
They got big on a local racing scene that was viewed as the best. It wasn't these are the high school recreational football players like or something like that. We have this perception today. It's a hobby sport, and that's because of the fans that we don't have. We're not able to pay correctly anymore because the stands are not full, or we're not building
Mm-hmm.
any stands.
Taking
Bristol
some
Motor
down actually.
Right. Bristol Motor Speedway didn't have 100,000 seats all the time. They built stands,
Yep.
so we haven't been able to build stands because we lost the relevance in the regular American's mind. So now because we don't have as much fans, we don't have enough money coming in to be able to pay adequately for how much these cars cost anymore. I was at Stockton, and I
Yep.
said, we could have stands around this whole place if there was enough people wanting to come here and be here, and then this race would be paying 70 or $80,000, and it would make sense to own a 410 sprint car because
Yeah.
that's what it honestly needs to be paying.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, and people say it's crazy and all that. It's not. You just need the fans to
You
love
need the
that.
fans, but I mean that's tough. Gosh, last month you was down in
It's
Florida.
not that tough. It's not that tough if the relevance of the
Uh,
sport was not in the gutter the way it is.
that's true. I see that side of it too. But you was down in South Florida last month or 2 months ago with Ken Henney. Is that his name?
Ken Kenny, yes,
Yeah,
down there at Henry
yeah,
Motors.
Ken Kenny. What is it? Hendry County Motorsports Park.
Yes, it is.
And he told you that in that video wasn't that track he bought it for 700,000 and he invested at least 300, so he's roughly around $1 million into that track.
Million into the track.
That's a lot of damn money. There's a lot.
Yeah.
People don't realize how much it costs to get a track just up and going, but then you got to maintain the dang thing. And a lot of these guys and gals that are maintaining tracks, that's almost an all week job. It's not just I'm going to maintain it Friday for Friday night and Saturday. No, that's a lot of work to be a
And when I
promoter
went
and to keep all that going. It's a lot of work people don't realize.
And when I was announcer, and then the first year in 2012, and got to get into more promoting and commercial ads and knowing what's in and what's out at Devil's Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I got to see is how much this purse is every week.
Yeah.
You know how much this electric bill is, how much this water bill, how much this fuel bill is, how much does the staff cost. You know,
Yeah.
and when you add all that in, and then you count the money coming through the front gate and even the back gate, there's a lot of negative nights out there. And that's
Oh
one
yeah.
thing I was looking at when I was at Devil's Bowl. We were a weekly race. You know, 1,000 to 1,500 was really good. You know, we're paying 1,000 for the Race Saver sprint cars, 200 to start. I'm
Yep.
thinking in the back of my head, you know, the cost of the cars are where they are, but if the payouts were where they needed to be, we could pay adequately for how much they cost, it would make some damn sense. And I'm looking at a 10,000 seat and stand, which is 0.014 of the Dallas Fort Worth population. If that was full, if you could times your income by 10, then you could times your payout by at least two or three.
Oh
And now
yeah.
you're not racing for 1,000 anymore or 200 to start. You're racing for 3,000 or 4,000 to win and five or seven, 800 to start. And with the Race Saver 305 sprint car, now it makes sense to own a car. Now it makes sense to drive one. And that's why we are in this rent a ride situation, because it don't pay to win anymore. People don't want to put winners in their cars because it don't pay to win in racing, in dirt track racing especially. You got Donnie Schatz last year who won over 20 races on the World Outlaw Tour, just over $600,000, and we're looking at an operation that's anywhere from 850 to 1.2 million.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
And
all that traveling across the country and stuff, man, that's a lot of money.
yeah, that's insane that it's not paying to win, and people are okay with it. Why? That's my deal. Is it is a fan base enabled situation. uh, you know, we should be raising hell about this as a dirt fan community. But since we've been hoodwinked, and the biggest, most important thing for us is to find the next Kyle Larson, you know, because that's always the talk. What's the next guy that's going to do it? We're not concerned with our guys that are here. You know, we're not, you know, one of my biggest deals that I noticed is when I was working at Dellsville, I would send in driver interviews and coverings of the track that I would do, results, all kind of stuff, stories coming up to the local news stations, and they didn't give a damn to come out and say hi. But the moment I was there, and maybe a lot of people don't get to experience this or have put in the damn work to even understand it, but the moment Kevin Ward Jr.'s ass got killed, the damn phone's ringing off the hook, and
Yeah, that's true.
that's when it went in my damn mind. No matter how much, no matter how badass this local 25-year old, 22-year old 305 racer I got, who's running, I've watched racing for a long time. He's running this 305 sprint car as hard as you can run it. You could bring Kyle Larson in here. You could bring Donnie Schatz here to this local track, but that guy is going to probably put a damn good fight up and maybe whoop his ass. He's one of the greatest in the country. He just only has 35,000 for a 305 sprint car. But no matter how good he is, this damn world ain't going to care about him until he goes into the corner, makes one mistake finally, clips somebody's front end, flips off into the woods, catches on fire, and burns to death. That's when they're going to come out there and give two shits about him. Not why he's out here putting on a show better than any one of those stock car races put on a Sunday night and getting no respect. That's only when they're going to care about him. And that goes for
Mm-hmm.
all of them
That does
sprint
that.
car racers. And we should be infuriated that the only way our sprint car racers get any respect or attention is when they are sent to the damn TV screen in a body bag. That should piss everyone off in this sport, and that should be our biggest fucking issue. Sorry, once again, I just get a little bit
No, I
rowdy.
100% agree with you on that. And that's media just focusing on horrible shit. And they do that not just in the
Well,
racing
and
world,
that's
with
why it does go.
everything.
That's why it
With
does go back
everything.
to the NASCAR deal, the manipulation that causes this.
Yep.
It goes right back to the manipulation that gives this perception of they are the NFL. It does directly go back to them. Unfortunately, whether they wanted it to or not, they're trying to market themselves as the best and good damn job, but it's doing all this shit to everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people, and that's the sad thing. People love to see crashes. They love to see wrecks, and I don't like to
They
see
love
them.
to
I,
see
I
great
drive
racing
race cars.
too.
I don't want to see wrecks, but I'm glad to see when people are able to climb out of them. unhurt or
They would like
uninjured.
to. They would like to see great racing too if
And
they knew it existed.
that's exactly it, you know. And with sprint car racing and stuff on dirt, you see a lot better racing than you do in any asphalt racing. And I've raced both. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've raced late models on asphalt. I've raced sprint cars on dirt. And I'm telling you what, the most fun I've ever had in any kind of race car was actually 2 years at the shootout, side by side with KJ Snow, and we done it for 8 laps. We did make a little contact on the white flag lap coming to it, and that was mostly my fault. I tried to dive it in there on his right rear, and he thought he had me cleared, so that was mostly my fault. But that was some of the best racing in just 8 laps that I'd had. You know, you take some of the asphalt late model stuff, turning like 80 laps at a track like Irwindale or something like that, and you'd side by side for a while, but it ain't gonna be nothing like that. And me and KJ on that race a couple years ago, we were driving our asses off. I mean, I'm telling you what, we were going into them corners and just hoping we come out straight. And you know, and then and watching it, you know, watching you go you know to these sprint car tracks, and there's always side by side racing, slide jobs, and you know, somebody countering back and giving another slide job in the next turn, you know. And that is exciting racing, and people just don't always see it.
And my message to NASCAR is, when people did see it, when people did view these local guys as some of the greatest in the country, as a local icon, as a local hero, as much as they worked the pop culture era, which is really another aspect of this. It was all about getting people to worship a television icon, more mommy or daddy or local racers or guys you know. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people can see how the rappers manipulated the black people. They can see how Kim Kardashian's manipulated all these women into wanting to inject their lips and ass, but they can't see how NASCAR and all this manipulated us to worship NASCAR drivers more than our sprint car local racers. They can't see that aspect of it. It's a pop culture thing as well. But my message to NASCAR: you want to get some more fans. Well, these other people, you need to stop saying you're the NFL. Start saying what you are, and start getting these other guys some recognition and respect. Because if they know about our racing, they might become race fans. And then when you come to town once or twice a year, you are coming to a town full of race fans that will come out and watch your thing because they're race fans now. You know, they're race fans because of our show that we put on. And that's how they were successful back in the day with short track, not only dirt, but asphalt racing was big as well back then. Frank Kimmel was a huge ass name.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't people that could jump into ARCA and win. You know,
Yeah.
they would take backup Bush cars and go run ARCA, and not just for testing, but for money and competition, because it was paying decent to be an ARCA racer too back then, an ASA, and they would get smoked by Frank Kimmel. And
Oh
people knew
yeah.
who Frank Kimmel was. You
Yeah.
know, so not only that, but the local scene and all that needs to start being not only recognized, which is what NASCAR seems they want people to do, but it also needs to be viewed and respected as having the greatest racers in the country. Not the guys out here that don't have God given talent and are hard workers, but the best in the country at what they're doing. And until
Mm-hmm.
that happens, right, we're not going to have race fans, or we're not going to have people at the track respecting our drivers or coming out there for their talent. They're going to be coming out there to support the poor old hard worker guys, and maybe they might get in a crash and die. That'll be cool, you know. So that's that's my message to them. You want to
Yeah.
grow NASCAR back up, get back where you belong, which is a part of racing, not the representation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't agree that everybody comes to the track to see somebody crash, but I do agree with
No,
that.
but
Um,
no, they don't.
but
But
it's
what is the new person going to come to when all they see about a sprint car when they do their segment is hard workers, and then the other time you see a sprint car is when somebody's in a big fiery crash.
yeah,
So that's what I'm talking about. No, not all of them are. Probably not. But that's all they get to see in their mainstream media of a representation of the sport. Grassroots, hard worker, crash. That's all they see.
yeah. But I believe most of the people that do show up at the dirt track on a Saturday night are hard workers. You know, they work their ass off to get their car to the track on
But
Friday
they
and Saturday.
also have that God given talent.
Oh yeah, they go
They
for
also
sure, for
they
sure.
also could be Tom Brady without a high school and college. You know, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
That's
There's a
true.
lot of Tim Tebow's up in NASCAR right now, looking really fucking good.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
when I mean, and that's why regular people don't relate to our sport either, is because there are, once again, no organically funded stars. In other sports, you can have a guy come from a trailer park, or come from this region, or go to a college and build up a town. People are talking about they need more UNLHs. No, if there's any kind of college level, it should be the local racetracks. That should be the college level, is the local racetracks. And as far as the national level, it should be multiple forms. Well, drivers should not be having to trade in their passion for money, and that's not always what had to occur. You hear all the time Larson and say, my passion's in dirt track racing. Well, why aren't you able to do it? You know, why
Well,
aren't you able to do it? And it all goes back to money.
yeah,
You
but
know,
he
so
does come back and do dirt track stuff though.
well, and he's going to be doing a lot more than that this year
Yeah.
because of some issues with the sponsorship with DC Solar. But I don't want to get into everything that I
Yeah.
know because I.
Yeah,
But
let's leave DC Solar out of it for a bit, but let's talk about Kyle a little bit because he was pretty hard on him this year at the Chili Bowl about having McDonald's as a sponsor.
well, and that's because of my personal uh, experience. I lost the weight, and similar, and that's how I got to this whole questioning myself with the being a fan of Gordon's and the Larsons and the
Mm-hmm.
Stenhouse and the Stewarts. Is with the food aspect. I didn't get my stomach cut or anything like that. I looked at these surgeries like, oh, cut your stomach in half so you eat less. I'm sitting there like, well, why don't you just eat less? And I started looking into the food industry and why I did like McDonald's or these fast food industries or these drinks or that drinks. And it's all a big marketing scheme. It's a big marketing manipulative ploy to get you addicted to certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it is to a marketing manipulative ploy to get you addicted to sprint car guys racing NASCAR. It's the same thing.
Okay.
So the food industry is a very evil, very, very, the Food Drug Administration, I mean, all of this is a very evil, evil world. And McDonald's kind of headed up the manipulation on the public, using pop culture icons like Michael Jordan and all these other people to get kids on this stuff. I mean, and this stuff's dangerous. Smoking cigarettes is something I had a history in, which is one of the reasons my teeth are bad. But I mean, if somebody smokes cigarettes all day, every day, there's evidence of them living to 112 years old. I think the oldest guy in America does. But if you put somebody down and have them eat McDonald's every day, they're not going to make it past 2025. So this stuff is very
Yeah, just
dangerous.
unhealthy food. Yeah, I got you.
It's
Yeah.
very dangerous. And when you have somebody in Kyle Larson's position, where kids are looking up to him, where kids are looking at him and listening to him more than their mommy and daddy, right back to the pop culture phenomenon, they're going to go ahead and hit up the McDonald's. I mean, that's why McDonald's is sponsoring him, hoping that his fans will buy it. So, and he knows this position that he's in, and maybe like trading money for passion. Some people don't have that in them, or refuse that. Some people are taking the money too much. That's one of the bad side effects of evil, greedy capitalism is worshiping the dollar bill over morals and choice. So that is why I was upset at that, just because of my personal understanding of what was on the side of the car and my personal understanding of the marketing aspect of that. It is a thing that is targeted towards kids. That's why it's a Happy Meal. And it's about addicting kids. It's about addicting kids to bad, horrible food to turn you as a human into the cash cow. That's why all the marketing on television and radio is syndicated with non cuss words. It's not because people wouldn't watch it. It's because marketers target young kids with most of their products. Because just like me and you who love racing because we did it as a kid, the same thing applies to foods and products and drinks and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Nike,
Oh
sneakers,
yeah.
clothes. It's all about relating to your childhood memory.
They're
It's
targeting targeting the demographic, which in most cases, I don't know about like food places like McDonald's, but in most cases it's people between the years of probably 15, well, 16 to probably 35 in most cases. That's their
how
demographic
many
that most of
parents
them are aiming for.
and how
McDonald's
many
with the Happy Meal obviously aiming for younger kids. But at the same side of that, I live in Wyoming. We don't have a whole lot of fast food restaurants. I mean, we got like a Burger King here in my town I'm at, but that's about it. And I roughly hardly ever eat there. That's a very rare occasion. Um, I mean, I live in Wyoming. If I can't harvest my own food, like grow my own stuff, or and I also do hunting, and that's how elk meat. I love elk meat. I know you're vegan, I guess as it is. I don't know what it
Well,
is,
I'm trying. I'm
but
trying I'm trying to get away from that because there's a big ploy in that world as well.
oh no. Well,
I
you
mean,
you,
even
you need to
I mean, I know,
partake.
I know, I
You
know,
need to
I know,
take
I
up
know.
on. You need to take up on hunting. Then you shoot
Well,
you shoot your
elk,
shoot your own meat and process your own meat. There ain't no
well,
ploy in that.
and that's kind of hard for most people to do, which is why McDonald's and these places are successful.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
as far as McDonald's, they have got caught now, kind of like the cigarette industry that told everyone in the 40s that if you smoke cigarettes, your teeth will be better or whiter and you'll breathe. They got caught killing all these people, with their food. So they have healthened up their system a little bit. So you can still eat somewhat healthy at McDonald's if you choose correctly. It's all back to choice once
Yeah.
again.
It's probably just something you
But
shouldn't do every single day.
right,
That's
and
for sure.
and it's about addictive chemicals within the food. The reason they're
Yeah.
able to sell these burgers for dollars because they put all this meat, which is we don't even want. I could describe where all this meat comes from, which is why I'm not against the elk or the buffalo or these other exotic meats, I guess you would call it, because it's not some big farm industry that is basically raping and pillaging animals for profit. And then once mom cow can't produce any more milk after they've raped her for fucking 7 months, then they cut her up and make her your damn burger. But anyway, back to the point, McDonald's, the reason they're in a lot of these places are able to sell it for so cheap is they take all this meat, they throw it in a big damn processor, and then they add all these fillings and chemicals to thin out the meat to produce more patties.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they
it's about,
process it. Yeah.
and we don't even know how the brain truly works. I'm sure a lot of these scientists who get paid a lot of money at McDonald's and all these other places do. So they may know what kind of chemicals do trigger addictive tendencies. So that's the bigger deal with the whole Larson and McDonald's deal it's a personal thing more than anything. So and I am trying to lead a thing where be influenced by morals and viewpoints more than the dollar bill, and that is another scary thing that those people do influence that do make the NASCAR trick is to just don't worry about the sprint car that you love, don't worry about this sport, you make the money over here, do it for the money,
Mm-hmm.
you know so that's the other aspect that I don't
But
like about the whole situation.
but that's the thing. Don't you think that? I mean, Kyle Larson has openly admitted that to him winning the Chili Bowl is bigger than like the Daytona 500. That's more prestigious to Kyle Larson. And I put
Well,
I put the
that's a big
Daytona
that's a big
500 up there, and I love dirt way more than I do anything on asphalt. Trust me. But I put the Daytona 500 up there with that's like Monaco or Baja 1000, Indianapolis 500. I mean, those are prestigious races. And I put the Chili Bowl up there too. I mean, you got to if you're a dirt racer.
Well, that's a big
But
marketing ploy as well. If you'd like me to dabble into that real quick, the Chili Bowl.
okay, dabble on. I like to hear it.
Okay, so the Chili Bowl is a very interesting event. Of course, it's an outlaw midget event. So NASCAR works on this perspective that dirt is a lower level. That is why they bring in Larson and Bell and protrude them as the best dirt racers, and that's how you placed Gordon over Kinzer and Swindell as an icon, and that's how you place Larson and Bell over Schatz and Pittman and these guys as the best of the best. It goes back to Roman times or Hunger Games, where they take the one guy from each sector, throw him into a pen, and have him fight and have
Mm-hmm.
that whole community cheering for them. So what the Chili Bowl does, and is one of the main reasons it gets all the attention that it does, and the support of NASCAR media outlets, is it's a situation where Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell can be in a vehicle that is at least 20% better than the rest of the field, and they're probably going to run up front or win it, one of the two, because they're
Yeah,
really good
they're
race
outlaw
cars
class. Yeah.
and they have a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that NASCAR style attention to any of these other dirt track races when they get into a sprint car, because a sprint car, you ain't going to just outclass anybody. And Keith Kunz Motorsports, with the support of TRD, doesn't have the capabilities to have a better race car than the rest of the field. They're not going to show you Larson running 10th in the World of Outlaws.
But
They're not going to show you all this stuff.
but
They're going to show.
they both raced with Keith Kunz before they went on to NASCAR though.
Well, I
That's something to
understand.
think about there.
I understand. I'm just saying that that is why NASCAR somewhat doesn't mind that statement, is because if the majority of regular people can pay attention to the Chili Bowl, then it continues to give that perception that Larson and Bell are just the greatest of the great of dirt track racing. And that's why they're in NASCAR. These other guys are just not that talented. Our two guys that we have in NASCAR are the greatest dirt racers. That's the perception.
that the
That
NASCAR's aiming for, and we know that ain't true.
exactly.
I mean, I actually think Kyle Larson and Chris Bell are pretty damn good on the dirt. I mean, even when they're in a car where the classes where it's not outlaw, they're
They're
pretty damn
good.
good. They're solid
They're
racers,
good.
man.
I continue to say they're the greatest race car drivers
Yeah.
in the country,
And and
but
and I
they're
think
not
they owe
great.
it to themselves though. I mean, if they ain't getting the money and they've got the offer to go to the Cup Series, well, Chris Bell ain't quite there yet, but we know that's coming. That's without a
No,
doubt
it's
coming.
not.
The kid is a
That's what
shoe.
I.
But
That's what
don't
I
they
keep
owe it to
saying.
themselves to go there where the money's at? And I mean, especially if they're willing to come back and race on dirt tracks, because then they hopefully pull some of the fans back out that are, hey, he's racing at a dirt. Why is he racing at a dirt? That might not understand dirt, so they follow
Well,
Kyle Larson or Chris Bell back to these dirt tracks. It might work the other way a little bit. Don't you think that?
I see the gateway drug aspect that you're giving there, and that's what.
Gateway, come on.
That's no. That's what they call that. That's
Yeah,
what that's the term in the dirt media world. Is it's a
yeah,
gateway.
I got you.
Turn them on to it with Stewart or Larson or Bell, and they might like it. But I was at a dirt track race where Tony Stewart showed up, and I got there at 6 o'clock, and I
Hmm.
couldn't see anywhere. I was parking at the damn highway, so many people were there. And in the A main, Tony Stewart was getting his ass slapped.
Hmm.
And by hell, there was a guy out there running on 7 cylinders and an Avenger chassis outrunning him. But there was a 3 car battle for the lead. I think it was with Danny Woods, Seth Bergman. It was an ASCS race at the Lawton Speedway.
Hmm. Yep.
And he went caution with about 7 to go. And Tony Stewart pulled off the track because obviously he was getting his ass handed to him, didn't want to burn his tires off or whatever. The damn stands emptied and left. So what does that tell me? They aren't respecting or there to see anyone else but him. If they were there to see somebody else, if these other local guys were respected and viewed and all that, they would be there watching this 3 car slide job back and forth. But it goes back to the pop culture celebrity icon situation to where
Yeah, and I
these
got you.
NASCAR guys are the ones that get the attention. And if Vanilla Ice ain't on the racetrack, then I'm not going to stay for these backup artists.
Vanilla Ice, huh?
I mean, I'm just
That's old
saying.
school. But yeah, I know I get you. And speaking of Tony, I'm going to kind of take us off the tangent here for just a second. But I didn't know if you seen this news that Tony done a question, took some questions with the Virginian pilot yesterday, and his take on NASCAR. This is what he had to say, and I quote: "They got to get drivers that have personality. It's great having opportunities to drive cars, but shoot, they're not even old enough to go to a bar, and they're trying to make these 18-year-old kids heroes. I'm still a race fan too, and it's hard for me to embrace somebody who's just graduating high school and they're driving a cup car. What have they done really? Legitimately earn their opportunity? There's hundreds of thousands of race car drivers across the country that clawed and scratched their way at Saturday night short tracks and worked on their cars all their lives to get where they are. Then you get kids with rich fathers and deep pockets to put them in race cars. All of a sudden, because they're 18 years old, they think they deserve to be in a cup car. I have a hard time with that. I think there are drivers out there with the experience and personality that makes race fans want to follow them. That's what's lacking in NASCAR. What do you think of that statement? That's pretty strong.
Yeah, and it's very similar to the stuff that I've said, and somebody messaged me that article and said, "Look, everybody yells and cusses you down when you say the same thing that he does." Uh, I mean, I agree with him. Tony Stewart is one of the only guys I think out there that actually used to or still kind of does. I saw him with the interview with him and Ralph Shaheen where he was like, "This isn't a lower form."
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just think that he's got a point, um, and it's very true. I mean, it's almost similar to what I've said, so it's on point. I just think that it's still based around the goal of getting a guy into NASCAR. How he's speaking. It's still of let's get a Donnie or a Sam Latif Jr. a shot in a cup car or something like that. It's still kind of putting it on that B level. That's probably the only area I kind of
Mm-hmm.
disagree with him at. But I mean, maybe, once again, corporationally owned and all this, so maybe that's all he can say. There's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people who are owned by TRD or are owned by this corporation or that corporation that has very heavy stock car ties to where they can't say certain things.
And
So
that
maybe it's,
and that could be true. I'd like to believe a lot of these guys don't mean to put, dirt racing as a lower form. I mean, and it probably could be true in Stewart's case. I don't know. For sure. It's not like I've talked to him about it, but
like I said, he's defended it before.
yeah.
He
Oh
has
yeah,
said,
yeah. He has.
it's not, this isn't a lower form, but it's kind of, that tune's kind of changed a little bit here and there.
And
So
it's same with Larson, Kyle Larson, a couple years ago when he came out and said, "I'd much rather win the Chili Bowl than I would the 500." Man, NASCAR fans hated that. They were, "What
yeah, it
the
was the
hell is
fans
wrong
that
with
went
you?"
after him.
But
That
they,
was, yeah, that's what I keep trying to say. You think these guys going to NASCAR and reaching NASCAR fans is going to help us when the guy literally got out there and said, "I love this more than y'all," and they are the ones that bitched him out.
mm-hmm.
So who are you trying to reach? You're
And
trying to
that's
reach people who are already upset that you're talking about it in a higher level.
Yeah, and I think it's just maybe the demographics are just on one or the other are just a little bit too split, and we need to try to reconnect that. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying here about we need bigger events, higher payouts, but it's like a double edged sword. It's just like he's talking about Ken Kinney and his track, $1 million right there with what he's got, and he's still building on to that bad boy. He's still trying to
Yeah.
perfect it. You
And
know,
there's two ways people are really looking at this, and I think like I said, there's a lot of people who agree with my way of doing it. There's two ways of looking at it. One way is looking at it like the Larson, Stewart, Kenny Wallace way, and that is working with NASCAR to get the word of dirt racing out there, and that's going to help the sport. I look at that, and the other way, I guess you would call it, is that's going to do nothing but put us on a lower form viewpoint. It's not going to give us the respect we need for regular people to want to come and watch us, unless one of these guys are there. Which I don't know if you've looked into how much they charge tracks to even appear.
mm-hmm.
So that's one of their money makers. Even one of them tried to charge $2,000 to include their picture on a flyer. So that may be why they like that situation. But I think we need to get less NASCAR ties. When you look at the sport, when it was a high level sport, we had pretty much no NASCAR ties. We had 70 cars in the pits
mm-hmm.
all the time. And we were concerned about promoting our drivers as the best in the country.
Oh yeah.
I think that is the better option to go down, which it may be the harder one, but yeah, stop eating the cheeseburgers and French fries. It may taste good for you,
Yeah.
but you may have to cut back a little bit and try to do it on your own.
And
Uh,
I agree with you here on that side of it a little, but at the same time, like if you got a guy who's kicking ass in 410, the World Outlaws, he's kicking ass in the 410, and he gets an offer to go to NASCAR. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if I got that offer, I'd be there in a fucking heartbeat.
we need somebody to say no. That's what we
I
need
know,
is
but I
somebody
mean,
to say no.
why
As much as the money
would you?
factor,
You know,
because pick love over money. I
yeah, that's
said
gonna be
this to
tough, man. It's
I
gonna be
picked.
tough.
I said this to Kevin Swindell at the Gateway Dirt Nationals, and I won't repeat his response because I don't want him to get in trouble.
There you go.
I said, you know what the deal is with Kyle Larson and these Bell and these transitional drivers is they're 22-year-old girls with 60-year-old men. And he says,
Oh,
what do you mean? And I said, well, this 22-year-old woman who's really hot looking, she could go be with that 60-year-old guy and have plenty of money and make a lot of money and all this stuff. Or she could choose to be with the 25-year-old that she loves and not make as much money, but still be happy and be in love. And when you look at it, that is pretty similar to what happens. These guys are leaving to be with the money. They're not in love with it,
and I don't know. I mean,
and
I don't know. Have you asked
they
either one of
keep
those guys?
they keep the sprint cars. You don't even have to ask. You have to look at it for what it is. That's what it is. That's exactly what happens. You're sitting here saying that the reason they're doing it is for the money.
Well, I'm
So
not sure. Maybe they just love racing, and they get that opportunity. I mean,
that's the politically
those,
correct answer. But
and
I think
it
there,
could be, it could
I
be,
think
but I don't know. It's not like I've asked the guys. You know what I mean?
a little bit of me says that they're running stock cars full time because it makes a lot of money. That's just maybe a possibility. They're not running sprint cars because they can make more money in stock car. I think that might be it,
And
but I
it
could be
could
wrong.
be, but yeah, that's the same. That's what I'm saying. It could be either way, but the way I feel these guys are in their attitudes. I mean, especially Chris Bell. I mean, I raced against him in one of my heat races a couple years ago at the shootout.
Now, don't say Chris Bell because
Christopher, what's wrong with Christopher?
I know for a fact that Chris Bell was in tears at one point, and I've changed my perspective on Christopher Bell because of this story I heard. So I may not want to say fact, but the story I heard is Christopher Bell was in tears when he had to not run a sprint car to go be at a stock car event
He
because it
probably
was
was,
a deal. He wanted to run sprint car.
and
And
that's
in my opinion, in Christopher Bell, he is in a snub contract right now. They have him in an Xfinity car. He's going to stay there for a long time, buddy, because they want Chris Bell there in Xfinity with that carrot in front of the rabbit's face of a cup ride so that he doesn't go to the world of outlaws because the biggest threat to NASCAR right now, and this is why they buy our drivers, the biggest threat to NASCAR's dominance and this perception is Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, and Donnie Schatz on the World of Outlaws tour because that is the modern day Kinzer, Swindell, and gang, and they are buying it so that threat does not come to life.
and that could be possibly true. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know he's been racing, going back and racing the midgets and stuff like that. So I don't know, when they tried to stop him from getting into a sprint car. And hell, I'd probably break into tears too if the same thing happened to me. But that's leads me back to my point. He just loves racing, and he's good
But
at it. Well, why should he not
if he
take
if he
to
love
where
if
it's going to give
he
him some money and he still can be racing? And I don't agree with like NASCAR or whoever the sponsors are, TRD or whoever that may be that's trying to stop them from doing that. Just like a couple 3 years ago when Chip Ganassi didn't want Kyle Larson to go race. It was Knoxville,
yeah,
and
and
Larson
that's a
went out
good
there and
point.
kicked some ass. Both sides of that came back to NASCAR and won the race the next day. But
Well, and
I
that's a
think these
good
guys just
point.
love racing. I don't think it's about the money to them. And if they're
I think
given an
I think
opportunity,
that
whether it be Formula One or, I mean, Formula One's probably a higher stance. That's a tough sport to get into there because you're traveling worldwide. But IndyCar or NASCAR, you're giving them opportunities. Why pass them up? I mean, my goal when I started racing 10, 15, 20 years ago, however long it's been now, I mean, I've raced everything from snowmobiles to motorbikes to, and my real passion is on the dirt in a sprint car. And I found that again recently a couple years ago, and I don't ever want to leave it. But
well, and that's
my
why I
my
say
goal
we
was to
need.
race every single thing I possibly could in life, which I probably, no matter how hard I work my ass off, be able to do that. But I'm still gonna try like hell.
Look, it's all speculation. It's all
Yeah,
speculation. Even if we hear words from Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell's mouth, what like we've already talked about, the corporational involvement, the contracts, what they can and cannot say, their marketing teams. We don't even know if we're getting what they truly feel, which is one of the bigger problems with NASCAR. Is they got these guys on lock so much that they can't develop into true characters because they're not able to say what they really feel. Look how much Tony Stewart got in trouble for doing that.
yeah, and I
So,
think that's kind of what he's like talking about in that interview I brought up. He wants
well,
that
and
shit back. Kevin Harvick used to be the same way. He's a little bit more reserved nowadays. I don't know if it's just because he got older or maybe there's some contracts that are locking him down and he don't want to get in trouble.
and that's why I say it's all speculation. But I would speculate that if you set Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell into a back room and said, look, you can run World of Outlaw sprint cars full time, or you can run NASCAR full time, and you'll make the same amount of money no matter which one you pick, which one would you want to do? I would speculate that they would pick World of Outlaw sprint car racing, which is why I'm saying we need to fix our sport to get it to something along those levels. And you can do it without corporations. You can do it with fan funded events.
Yeah,
So,
it's still gonna be tough, man. The world now is all about marketing. That's a tough deal, and that's the other thing. Like in NASCAR, when I was getting involved in that quite a bit, I'd go through what they call Joyce Julius reports. I don't know if you're familiar with them. This is how I would get sponsors. As I go through and see, and Joyce Julius would even do the ARCA race at Daytona. So you could go through and see how many viewers were on TV, how many times they mentioned Bobby Gerhart, or how many times they mentioned Lucas Oil, and it'd break it down as per that event. If they the companies that were mentioned, because they were on a car, or the driver, if he would have been mentioned in a commercial, how much money that would have been commercial wise, per a 30-second block. Does that make sense? So they got Joyce Jewish reports. We really don't have that in the dirt track side of things.
Well, and you bring up Lucas Oil there for a second, and a lot of people have always said to me recently, like, oh well, if you had the money, you could pay to get World Outlaws on ESPN or ABC for a race or something like that.
Yes.
When you dive into media corporations, they're heavily owned by a lot of
Oh yeah.
people with a lot of money,
A lot of other
and
corporations invested into them. You bet.
they like to control what people see and know and understand, and they almost view the regular person as a part of a herd, the human being herd, I guess you could call it. But that's one guy, Lucas Oil, who did have the money and obviously the passion to put this stuff on ABC or ESPN, and he had to go buy his own television station.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be something in the back that we don't know about that is trying to keep NASCAR on top, whether that's their investments in it, whether that's GM or Ford or the car manufacturer's investment in it, whatever it may be. But Lucas Oil's example is a good example that there's something up there that can't be paid to put sprint cars out to the masses, because he literally had to
Yeah.
go buy his own station.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be more of an agenda here that we don't know about, which is
And that
I
could
don't
be, and that's
which is
tough.
I
It's
don't know.
really tough because I mean, could you imagine seeing the World of Outlaws on like ABC on a Saturday night?
Well, and that's
That'd
why
be
I say
huge reach to numerous
that's
people that
that's
don't
why
have
I
no idea
say
about any kind of racing.
a guy like a Lucas Oil had the money to do that.
But he just
Had
couldn't get it done.
something's
Yeah.
in there that said no.
Mm-hmm.
Something's
Something
in there
happened.
that said no.
Yeah, something
You're
definitely
not
happened
doing.
there because he did go out, and I knew that he did go out and start his own TV station.
Which is Mav,
Yep,
Mav
Mav
TV.
TV, and that's where it came
So
from. You bet.
something's, and I guarantee you, it cost a lot more to do that
Oh
than it
yeah,
would have been to put a World Outlaw or ASCS is probably what he would have chose. Either one of them, it don't matter, because
yeah.
I think some that I mean, Aaron Reitzel's a great example of how great the ASCS talent is.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, and he's a great Aaron Reitzel's a great example of how great the weekly racing talent is, because I know about 5 guys who used to smoke Aaron Reitzel locally in the Houston area and in Texas.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
um,
that's a thing. You get down to these classes, World Outlaws or USCS races, um, even get down to the 600 series races or the midgets,
oh,
and a
exactly.
lot of these guys are really quick, and gals. I mean, there's some girls out
Oh
there
yeah.
that'll smoke the doors off of a lot of people, and
I know a
and
female racer right now who runs micro that's on involved with the Haley Deegan deal, and she's probably better than Haley Deegan, but because she's not Haley Deegan, she's not going to get no opportunity.
and that
And, and somebody got mad at me for posting a picture of Brad Furr at the Delta Speedway.
hmm
They're like, why aren't you bitching him out for dropping down to a lower level like these NASCAR guys do? And I'm like, dude, the pitting area in here is just as tough as an outlaw race. I don't know how many people paid attention to the Tulsa shootout, but there was some pretty big national names getting their asses handed to them by some regular old guys. I know a guy who's 65 years old
uh-huh.
who running a 2007 Sawyer with a junk motor outrun Kevin Thomas Jr.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah.
I mean,
That's a stacked. You come to the shootout, that's stacked. I mean, those
well,
guys and gals there are on it, and you gotta be. Yeah, I sucked horrible there this year, but those guys and gals, some of the best competition you'll probably find anywhere.
and that's why I say it goes back to not only do we need to get our national drivers recognition, and hopeful that will trickle down, but we also need to really concern ourselves with the perspective of our local racers and scene, because
And
that's where it really does benefit
and
not
we
only
do.
us,
And that's
but
what I'm
it,
saying.
but it
This is where the double edged sword of this kind of comes in. So if we could get like World of Outlaws or some USCS events, and really get them marketed, and maybe on like ABC, CBS, or some local station where everybody can watch it, don't have to have cable, nothing. It's there, and bring in a lot more fans. And a lot of places, the dirt track world especially, there's a lot of tracks you can go to on a Saturday night, and you sometimes And a lot of them are working together nowadays, saying, well, okay, if you guys can run this Saturday, we'll take off and we'll run the next Saturday. But a lot of tracks, there's a lot of places you could stand at one dirt track in 30 minutes in any direction, hit 4 or 5 others. So what I'm saying is if you take away, and this is why I really hate track bashing because people do that shit all the time, and
Right.
tracks close their
Those are the
doors.
ones. The promoters are the ones getting their asses handed to
Yeah,
them. But more
and it's
anything.
tough. That's a tough deal. And a lot of people, the ones that open their mouth and bash different things like that, just don't get it. But I mean, what I'm saying is if you focused all of it on the one end, how much are you taking off the other end? From whether there's a midget race going on down here on the other side of the state, but we got the World of Outlaw series going here, and that's a tough thing. It's a double edged sword because a lot of these tracks they rely on. It's just like talking about Ken Kinney again. He $1 million invested into that track, and he's still not done building that bad boy. He's
Well,
he's gonna have to
local.
work his butt off to get the return, and that's something he might not ever see back, no matter how good the track is, which is unfortunate. That's a tough deal. That's something we face in this sport every single day.
Well, the local scene, even like I said, top down trickle, the bottom up trickles too. It's a meet in the middle sort of situation, to be honest with you. Because if you get the local scene upbuilt and track promoters start making money, then they can start paying more not only to the local scene, but they can start paying more or have the funds to host a World of Outlaw event and pay more for the World of Outlaw event to where their local guy can actually go up against them and have that drama aspect that I was speaking of earlier that NASCAR used to have in dirt track racing, where it's this guy versus your local guy versus the World of Outlaws, the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they both need that perception. For that to work, both need that perception. Your local guy has to be looked at as one of the best in the country with a local budget, and the World Outlaw guy has to be looked at one of the best in the world with a worldly budget. It has to both coincide. Now, how that would work when you're talking about competitive aspect, if we get to this sport to where everybody's making money and we're not always trying to die for a dollar bill, which is what these promoters are really going through. They are dying for a dollar bill because I don't know how many successful tracks you've seen out there, but there ain't too damn many. At least
No,
the ones run weekly. The only
it's
ones that are
tough.
decently successful are Eldora. That's probably one of the only one. And there's some in Indiana, Tri-State Speedway, Hopstot, where they have these small towns that haven't lost this glory uh, of a local racer. They still do sometimes, but the majority of them, 97%, are dying for a dollar bill, which is why they have to run when the World Outlaws are running down the street because they're
Right.
hoping that a bunch of people won't pay $45 and they'll only pay 12.
Yeah.
You know, so, but if the scene gets to where the perspective is, or the projection is, that is, it's all perspective anyway, but if projection got where I'm trying to allude to, then tracks can earn enough money to take a night off when the Outlaws are down the street and maybe even support it, bring their fan base to that show, make that race huge, and maybe that track might scratch the other tracks back the next night when the series is going to their track because they can afford it. So
And
it
yeah,
can
that's
all
that could be a good possibility.
that exactly. So I'm talking about a world that is organically funded, not genetically modified. And the genetically modified, in my opinion, is corporations creating these payouts increasing, corporations creating the tracks making money. That's when corporations start owning things. And that's exactly what happened to NASCAR. They got to a point where corporations started dictating who's on the track and where the next race is going to be, and that's because they lost the fan influence. You see how they
Hmm.
don't have the fan created income to support what they're doing anymore. And if we lean on Nos's and McDonald's to increase our relevance or increase our payouts, it's going to be more controlled, and I don't think we want to go down that road. And I did bring up the gambling aspect in one of my videos, which is a big one. Anything that
Hmm.
does go mainstream brings the gambling world along with it. And I know that most people know that there's been a few drivers win some races that were given the thumbs up because of the cinematics of the situation, similar to 2001 at the Summer of Daytona. But we forget to
Hmm.
recognize that there were millions of dollars on the line for someone else to win that race. So there's a lot of things to consider when going mainstream as well. And if you do it with corporations, then your outcomes can be speculatorily decided more than if it's with mom and pop shops and mom and pop teams who are funding their own stuff and winning enough money to support their operations or drivers. So there's a lot of things to consider and look at into this projection, but it needs, like I said, it needs to be getting these guys on the ESPN. Like, why can't a freaking Knoxville Nationals be on the ESPN?
Yeah, no
Why
kidding.
can't a Kings Royal or a World 100 get a little
Yep.
highlight? And when they show us, it don't need to be like Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson. Here they are. Next topic, because that's what we kind of get right now. That's all you kind of get from that aspect is when those guys are there. We need this world to pay attention to our guys who are there every single week, and that's why I reference the dirt late model world
Mm-hmm.
because it's why they're successful with two major national touring series and full stands every week because their biggest stars are in their cars every single week.
Yeah, yeah, and I get you. And like I say, like I agree with some of what you're saying, and I mean I agree we need something better for the sport and try to keep it growing and get it to where it used to be, especially back in the early '90s, mid '90s. Um, and we got to work for that. But a lot of times you say you go to the controversial side and you ain't scared of it. You got the balls to do it, and
Well, and it's really
literally.
not that controversial. I mean, you
Well,
look at
it
it, look
isn't.
at
It's
some of
just
the stuff I'm
it's the way
saying.
you word things and say things. I mean, you don't care if you're bringing up Kyle Larson and you hate on McDonald's. Well, you know what I'm saying. That pissed off a lot of people. I'm sure you noticed, right?
Well, I mean, it did for those who ain't seeing it. I'm seeing it from. They're not
Yeah, true.
considering my perspective. They're considering their icon's perspective.
Yeah.
Back to the pop culture scenario. But um, really what I'm saying is what I think a lot of these people would say if they didn't have corporations dictating what they were saying. I talk about sprint cars getting on TV and our guys getting recognition and everybody hates on me. And then Kyle Larson comes out and says sprint cars are built for live television and everybody praises it.
Mm-hmm.
You see me say stuff about the rich kids in NASCAR and that's what's destroying racing and everybody hates on me. You see Tony Stewart come out and say pretty much the identical same thing and everybody praises it. So it's really identification. It's
Oh yeah, I'm
icon,
sure. I'm sure some of it that for sure. Yeah.
and I think I am saying a lot of what those guys would say if the corporations weren't controlling what they said. And if I was to take a camera to Tony Stewart and try to defend my side, he would probably be against me. I would assume he would be because what I'm saying isn't in the best interest of his supporters and sponsors and corporations. So
Hmm.
it's not really. Uh, Me trying to cause some controversy, and even if it does cause controversy, well then at least it's around the topics that I'm talking about that are very pro dirt and very honest and very real in my opinion. And if it's being debated, then at least that topic is out there
Being
swirling
talked
around
about.
about
Mm-hmm.
why is it a problem that the topic of maybe dirt track racers should start getting more recognition and respect than NASCAR drivers, even if it is Larson or Bell? Well, that's a pretty damn good topic. I do not mind having that out there if my name has to be run through the dirt about it. That's fine.
And
That's a
that's what I
topic
was
that
getting
needs to be
to.
out there.
That's what I was getting to. Is you had last week some people calling you out about come down to Stockton. You drove thousands of miles across the country to get there, and you showed up there. You showed up to
Well,
prove to. I mean, it's one thing you're saying things, and sometimes it could be controversial, or other people take them wrong, or they throw them out there. And a lot of times, I try to look at it both ways, and that's probably why I understand some of what you're saying. Not all the time do I agree with it. Doesn't mean I hate your guts and I'm going to run your name through the mud. But there's some things you say, and I'm like, holy shit, he was on the money there. That is exactly what I would say, you know. And so when I don't disagree with you, doesn't mean I'm going to be pissed off at you. That's why I wanted you on here to talk about this because I want to understand what makes Chaz tick. You're ballsy enough to go out there and say it, and you don't give two shits what people say. You'll drive clear across the country to be there face to face, and you did it. you drove clear
well,
across the country last week, and you made it to Stockton. You was there, buddy.
yeah, and I mean, I've drove across the country to cover a lot of stuff, but people never notice that. They only
Oh
notice me
yeah.
talking, apparently. But um, I mean, that was pretty much, I could easily, probably, more than likely, be in Dallas, Texas, doing some announcing or promoting tracks or what I was doing and living comfortably and well. But I just think that there's a way more that I could do, even if it is these controversial videos. that I could do to help the sport overall, and that is sacrificing and living out of the car and
Mm-hmm.
driving thousands of miles to create this buzz around this sport, and that is telling the world of outlaws to kiss my ass when they deny my media credentials for the rest of the year and all that, you know. So I mean, uh, even if like I said, I think that the sport needs some help, and what I'm doing I think is helping. It's getting, like I said, to talk about it no matter what people think. I do have a very pro dirt aspect, and that perspective and aspect needs to be out there in the mainstream. Somebody needs to be saying that these guys are the greatest, when everyone out there in mainstream is saying, well, it's just a lower form, you know. Like I said, yeah, I'll drive to the end of the world. Hopefully, my car will stay running because I ain't got that great of one. It's at 250,000 miles, and I'll tell you what, I was in Nevada on the way to Chico, it kind of it had a little clunk going up a mountain, and I thought that was the end of it all. But luckily, we kept going, and I almost, actually, truly, realistically, almost did die going to Chico down I-20. I hit the windshield wipers because the sun was setting. It was late. You know, I was running kind of late. And in Reno, there you're going down through mountains.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was a 4-lane highway that I was on. I hit the windshield wipers to clean it off. And the windshield wiper, I didn't know, I'm from Texas where it's hot, but it was cold there enough to freeze the water onto the windshield and ice it all over. And was I was able to see through a little corner where it didn't wipe the ice across. Pretty much looked like one of those ice cream cold stone makers,
Yeah.
you know, freezes on it. And I pulled off of the 4-lane highway to wipe it down. Then I got back on the highway thinking would be better, and it was actually kind of worse. Then I exited off to a I-20 highway. That's a 2-lane roller coaster, or well, it's 1 lane each way. There's 2 lanes,
Yeah.
but it's 1 lane each direction. Where I was pretty much directly pointed right at the sun, and I could not see anything at all, period. And I had about 2 to 6 trucks honk at me as we missed each other by 2 or 3 inches. So,
I think I
I
watched
mean,
some of that video.
yeah, it's all on Instagram. You know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the Instagram with Dirt Track Chaz, by the way, and try to do some live stuff while I'm on the road, and then all that will instantly post to Dirt Track State of Mind as well, and then maybe take those and put them all together and make some videos out of those too. But yeah, I mean, driving thousands of miles and stuff, that's really not a big deal. But people knowing that I truly am dedicated to doing this, and that it's really not about money or greed or anything along those lines, that it truly is about getting the respect back up, not only for the national names, but the regional and local names too. I already have set up a talk show I'm going to do with Andy Forsberg, who's another guy, you know, he
Nice.
could be, but he could beat just about anybody in the country. I'm trying to talk to Justin Sanders. He could beat just
Heck
about
yeah.
anyone in the country, you know. And these are unknown locals. These are Kevin Ward Juniors. These
Uh-huh.
are these guys. These are the guys who no one's going to know about unless they do get killed. And that's that's the problem that needs to be fixed. And you mentioned the Kyle Larson race, that Knoxville deal.
Mm-hmm.
That is that's another situation I looked at. That is the example of what the dirt track fans could do for these other situations. That was such a big deal that we raised hell about it and
Mm-hmm.
got Chip Ganassi to change
That's
his mind.
true. Yeah, we did. A lot of people did.
Imagine,
Yep.
imagine if we took that same fury and difference making attitude to this.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's not a big deal. We're worried about co-trickle. So that's why I do go after the fan base in a little bit, because the fan base is enabling it to occur. It's the fan base that is enabling for it to be okay and to not address it. So there's a lot of things that need to be happening. I think that the two people to not blame is, well, most of the time, track promoters and racers and team owners and all that, because they're the ones that are losing their ass in this situation, especially track promoters. The only ones that are making money in this whole ordeal is series. Series make tons of money, because let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
something. For people that don't know how it works, The track promoter pays a series $120,000 to show up, and that series is paid. The way he's going to make his money is with the fans. His
Mm-hmm.
ass is
Yep.
flying. His ass is now 120 in the hole, hoping that the fans will show up so he can make some money. So the series is the most profitable organizations going on right now. That's why everybody's trying to start one, because it's a profitable thing to do in racing right
Mm-hmm.
now, and people need to look at that. The Outlaws renting out some tracks and all that. I guess that's okay. That's why they're able to go to certain places. Or Brad Sweet doing this promotional deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I heard he lost a decent amount of money at Chico.
Mm-hmm.
So that those are the last the promoters, the people paying for the shows, and I guess in some instances that is the Outlaws, and the drivers are the last ones to be blaming. It is mainstream media and the fan base. And the fan base could change and alter what mainstream media does if we take that let's Kyle race approach to all these other issues.
Yeah.
Our guys
I
in
agree with
sprint
that.
car, our guys in sprint car racing are more like mountain climbers, hanging on at by the edge of their tips of fingers, putting on a
Mm-hmm.
damn show. And right now, the only time you hear about them is when they fall off that mountain. That should be a huge issue. That
And
we
yeah.
could, we could, as a fan base, address and change. But through marketing and manipulation, we're not concerned about that as much as we should be. I'm sure there are people who are concerned, but there's a lot of people that are not concerned as much as they should be. So that's the main goal for me is changing what's going on, and talking about it is the first step in any change that's ever happened.
You
You
bet.
look you look at human history, and nothing ever happened until somebody started talking about it. No matter how much Rosa Parks was told to go to the back of the bus, you know, if she goes to the back of the bus and doesn't say anything about it, then nothing ever changes.
That's
So
true. You bet.
you got to
Yep.
start talking about this stuff. And if I have to take some of the bullets and even an ass whooping or two, you know, because I didn't know what I was going into at Stockton. I knew I was going into the hall of Larson land over here. I knew that that was the majority of the people who are talking bad and hating on me was the North California Larson people. So I mean, I wasn't scared by that, you know, and you can't be scared, you know. Life is only once, you know, and if you ain't living on the edge of death, are you really living? That's how I kind of look at it. And
There you go.
I think that's how a lot of these sprint car racers look at it too, and all the racers, they all deserve respect. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, I bet you think Carson Elliott should go out there and get killed or something, then you'd be happy." No, I don't think any of these drivers should get killed. I just think that we should start respecting and viewing them equally, because in the current situation, as much as people like to say I hate NASCAR and being unfair to NASCAR, the situation, the system, the current state of racing is unfair and disrespectful and cruel and mean to dirt track racers. Because I don't know how other way you could see it,
Mm-hmm.
not be mean and disrespectful, when our guys are just as good as them, but they have to be killed to be put on any kind of platform that NASCAR is put on weekly.
Yeah, and I think that just leads back to like marketing. You know, and it's just we're not as covered right now in the dirt world of things.
Well,
But
and like I said, the marketing
nation,
manipulation
yep,
is why I do blame the stock car deal, and why working with them may not be such a good idea, because they're always going to be, just like anyone should be, wanting to be viewed as the best. I'm saying to the dirt track world, let's start doing that too.
yeah,
Let's not work with them to be second best. Let's start trying to be the best,
yep, and
and we can all.
something for everybody to keep in mind here. A lot of the people in the dirt track world, even if they did get the offer to go to something else like stock car world racing in NASCAR, they might just turn it down. They might be happy with where they're at. So that's
Look at
something
what
else to
Brian
look at.
Clausen did.
Yeah,
Brian
exactly.
Clausen, the
He went to
greatest.
NASCAR, said, "Screw this, I'm going back."
Well, in my opinion, the greatest American racer we can have is close to an AJ Foyt style. And a lot of people
Yeah,
said that was Tony Stewart, but it kind of wasn't, because AJ Foyt never locked up in a contract.
yep,
AJ Foyt never really ran a full series, He did, but it wasn't an everyday deal. You could
Yep.
find him at a Silver Crown race here, and the reason you could find him at a Silver Crown race is because Champ cars used to pay more than NASCAR,
Oh yeah.
and I think the perfect racer in today's aspect is kind of like AJ Foyt, but it's somebody, if we're going to be locked up in contracts, and you don't even really have to be locked up in a contract. People are doing this so that they get their kickbacks from the series. They're getting a lot of money to sign up with a series and be on it full time. Contracts. You're given things to be on an outlaw tour or ASCS tour and sign up with them for the year. You're giving stuff because you can't just win races and make money. You have to be in something like that if you can afford to be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the best racer I think would be somebody who, okay, February comes around, I'll run Daytona. Okay, yeah, I'll run Volusia, I'll run Daytona. Go into Daytona and kick some ass, and then next week you're back at a dirt track, or
Yeah.
you're maybe you're playing in any car, and then when May comes around, you're running the Indy 500. Okay, yeah, I'll run that,
Yeah, there
and
you go.
and,
Just wanting to
and then
race
do what you
everything.
want.
You betcha.
Run, because that's when racing kind of was, more
Yep.
equally viewed, is when they had their events that were big.
You
It
bet.
wasn't necessarily a huge deal to be in NASCAR every week. It was a huge deal to be at the Daytona 500 or the Southern 500 or the Coca-Cola 600.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in IndyCar racing, it wasn't always a big deal to be at Long Beach or something like that. It was a big deal to be at Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And sprint car racing had their own deals too. It wasn't necessarily a big deal to be at every local race, but being at Eldora for the Kings Royal or Knoxville Nationals, that was a big deal.
You bet.
So that's what I think, as far as racer is concerned, and as far as what we should be looking at, what the best is somebody who does do all things, but is not necessarily contractually obligated to commit to any one of them. We need true outlaws once again, in the sport, and we just don't have that because of the financial situation that is in place. It is all about the money. It's about the dollar bill, and as hard as it may be to understand, human beings haven't always been, directed by the dollar.
Yeah.
So, and I think a few people need to stop going that route. Stop
But
just
that's the problem
making
though. I
money.
think
That's the hard part.
we need that dollar to keep it going. We need that dollar in
Like,
the
how
dirt
much
side of
dollar do
things.
you need? Honestly, now, Kyle Larson could be living decently well. Maybe not where he's at right now, money wise, but he could be living decently well running the Outlaws full time. He would have a fan
Oh,
base.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It may not. So I'm not necessarily saying.
But I mean in the dirt
Turn,
world
I'm
as a
not saying.
whole, not just
I'm not saying.
drivers.
I'm
I,
not saying turn down the money and live on the streets.
no.
I'm saying
No,
turn
I get what you're
down.
saying.
I'm turn down millions and millions for one or a couple 100,000.
And
Start
oh yeah.
making that decision. That's a Brian Clausen style
Yeah.
decision.
You bet.
Start making that choice, and I think it would do a lot. I
And
think the
I think there's some out there in the dirt world that have done that. We just don't hear about it.
because and we go right goes right back to the Lucas Oil deal.
Yep.
What is in there from blocking that? Something's in there that he found out because he has the money to do all this. That is something in the mainstream media is in there blocking that from happening. So I don't know what it is. Could be investments, could be corporations, could be the car manufacturers. I don't know what it is. Uh, there's obviously the underworld that's out there. Like I said, the gambling aspect that may be involved with that too. Uh, so you
Yep.
don't really know. You don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, and that's
So
tough. That's something we probably would need to try to figure out for sure. But I mean, I think like you say, if we get enough fans involved to just keep it growing, keep everybody involved, try to minimize the track bashing, and just try to keep all the dirt stuff growing as a whole back to where it was and bigger. Why not bigger? Get
and
get
being
it there.
proud in my perception, being proud and being happy and being uh, not arrogant but very convinced that sprint car racer is one of the greatest race car drivers in the country, or a Justin Sanders is, a Kyle deserves Kyle Larson attention, or a Donnie Schatz does,
Yeah.
or saying we need to care about him more than these NASCAR transitional guys. That's
Oh,
not necessarily a evil thing to say.
and see, then that's that's it's not. But I think a lot of people view it as, oh, you're just saying the dirt track crowd's good. And the way I see it, I know what you're meaning. And the
Well,
sprint
I
car guys
always
are, they are. There's some, gosh dang, that's the toughest racing. I think even the short little heat races, that's some tough ass racing. I mean, you're up on that wheel and you're wheeling that shit. If you ain't, you're in trouble. Number one, if you're not going up to speed, your car doesn't handle worth a shit. And number two, if you're going to commit to either the cushion, the low line, or wherever you're going, you're committed before you enter that turn, and you better damn sure hit that line. That's tough racing. But I think there's, in all forms of racing, whether it be Formula One or Baja, there's some excellent drivers out there that could probably excel in another side of racing. So that's the kind of way I like to look at it. And maybe that's why some of the people get a little ticked off. I don't know. But people just see things differently. But I mean, we need to focus on just keeping on what you're doing. Either way, whether you got haters or likers, as long as you're stirring up that controversy, man, people are listening. And that's the big thing. I think you're on the right track. I know it's heartfelt. This means a shit ton to you. I mean, it means a lot, and I can tell that, especially from talking with you today. But I already knew before we set up this interview that does. And you're working for it. You're doing something that nobody else is doing. I mean, I'm sure there's others that are working for it, but you're out there and you're doing all you can to try to say, hey, everybody, look this way. Look at the dirt stuff. Look at what these guys are doing in these sprint cars, or look what these guys are doing in these late models, or limited
or
lates.
look at, and I think this is what pisses some people off. Look at it from the business side and the manipulational side
And
of
that could be because then you got some people on the dirt tracks that have got some pretty big sponsors, and I'm not saying they didn't earn them. They probably deserve the shit out. I mean, they do. I mean, they deserve those sponsors. They worked their asses off for what they got. But some of them are
Carson.
influential in other series of racing, in other forms of racing. So I can see why people get a little shifty here with you, and that's all right with me. It's like I told you. I don't always agree with everything you say. Sometimes it's very minimal on some of your stuff, but I'm open for it. I agree with something. You'll hit it right on the head sometimes. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I would say. And that
Well,
doesn't mean I hate your guts and I want to send you hate mail. I just want to talk with you and figure out. And I think we pretty much figured out. Your goal is to get dirt racing back to where it once was in, like, per se, the early '90s, mid '90s, and that should be everybody's goal in the dirt world side of things.
right. And I mean, it is the way to look at it. Sorry, I got distracted by a comment on the video. I got to stop.
Well,
Uh,
yeah.
but I mean, that is the aspect of it all, and really, like I said, I lead off every one of those videos with Kyle Larson's one of the best out there. So it's
Yeah.
not necessarily an attack on him. It's just a boost for everyone else who wasn't 14 with hundreds of thousands of dollars race cars and all that. There is no room for the working man. I noticed you mentioned the sponsor deal, and I got some heat for the Carson Elledge TMC video, but I
Yeah,
mean,
you did.
there's
And
some
I
damn
seen that
good
coming,
valid
but
points. There's some
there
there's
is
some
some
damn
points.
valid
There
points in there.
is. There
What's up with
is.
this? Everybody in dirt racing and all these rednecks, they hate on participation trophies and stuff like that. But we got a situation here in dirt where it's 20 times as worse as participation trophies when we're awarding losers more than winners. So, and that's why it does go back to an anti-American situation, because we're supposed to be the nation where hard work and talent gets you somewhere, and in the racing world, hard work and talent's going to get you down the street at the back of a damn street stock race if you don't know anybody to help you out.
Hmm.
So it's just it's an interesting situation.
And that's a problem that's in all forms of motorsports. There, I mean, you'll have the rich kids come in, and it's nothing against them. Some of them can drive the wheels off the damn thing. They're good, and they got the daddies paying for the money. And a lot of times when I started out racing and shit, this is like bomber cars, so it wasn't like a whole lot of money invested, but still money invested. You got fenders on the damn things, which unlike sprint cars, a sprint car you ain't gonna be beating and banging as much as you do with something with fenders on it. But a lot of times, man, I'd have this kid that constantly banging on, come in and try to do a slide job and just totally beating the shit out of my car. I mean, they're bomber cars. You can have some dented fenders and pull them out after the race. But I finally got sick of it one night and went and told his dad. I was like, dude, you keep him from doing that. Start racing people clean, you know. And I had some fights with that. And you do have some of them kids like that don't have no respect for the money that's invested. because their dad just throwing the money. Oh, you want to go do this? Here you go. Here's 100 grand. And you do. But then
Well,
on the most of them are really well down to earth, and they can drive the damn car, and they got respect for others around them. Most of the kids that have that money to do that do. Unfortunately, some of us, like much like me, don't have that money to be able to do that, and it is a different world. So a lot of people are able to buy their way into motorsports. I mean, it does happen, and that's just something that's going to continue to happen. And it's nothing against the guys that are rich and got the money to do it. It
well,
really,
and
I mean,
that's
at
something
least
that Tony
they're
Stewart
doing
was
it.
that's something that Tony Stewart was pointing out, and I've obviously always pointed out, and the Carson Ellis situation, you was talking about how they respect it and all that, and are humble a little bit, and I've heard some stuff where she's not,
Hmm.
so and that goes right back to this royalty situation, almost like the music and movie industry right now, and
Hmm.
I said here recently, that the talent agencies are organizations like Keith Coons Motorsports, and then the movie screen is NASCAR trucks and cup rides. And you want to be a celebrity, give us some money, and we'll turn you into one.
Well,
Um,
he has been pretty successful at that. You can't take that away from Mr. Coons. He's pretty good at when they come race for him. They usually end up going somewhere like that.
well, and that system needs to stay in place to keep it on a lower level and to keep these talent agencies making a lot of money.
Hmm.
Uh, the fix for that is to getting these payouts back.
Yeah.
It all goes back to the pay, because if it paid to win races, these rent a ride situations
Oh
wouldn't be
yeah. And
as you
that's a
have.
tough deal. That's a really an uphill battle. It really is. But I
Well,
think it's
is it a
doable.
battle? Is it a battle that people are fighting? Because it
Yep, it
seems like
is.
they're not. A lot of
Well,
people are fighting
I think
that.
a lot of people keep their mouths shut.
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
I don't.
I think
In
that's
fact,
why people.
I
I
don't know
think
if you know how many people told me don't do an interview with Chaz Thompson. People will be putting you down on Facebook and on your social media. People are gonna hate. You know what? I don't know if you noticed, but I don't give a shit. And I wanted to talk to you. I'm glad we got this chance because I know, I've seen your videos and seen what you've posted and stuff like that for, like I said, 2 or 3 years now. And I've been following you, and I don't do a whole lot of comments or sharing some of your stuff because it brings in, there's people that don't like what you're saying, and God only knows why, and they attack you. And I ain't scared if they attack me. That's all right because people have got to open their damn eyes here at some point and say, hey, look, I love this form of racing. We need to support this form of racing. And there needs to be, in my opinion, like I said, I don't agree with everything you say. I got to keep throwing that out there so I don't get too many bullets on my social media. But more people need to be like Chaz Thompson and be outspoken a little bit about it. And I think a lot of them keep their mouths shut because they're scared. You're
well, and that's
scared of
another.
losing a ride or a track. Maybe, hey, you can't come here. Or, there's a lot of things that could go on that people think about before they speak. And, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. It's a hard thing, but I think people need to realize, hey, look, I don't care if it's, you know, a small series in dirt, bomber cars, all dirt stuff on dirt oval tracks we need to promote as best we can. And that's a tough world. I mean, it goes exactly back to Kenny again here. $1 million racetrack. You know how many dirt tracks there are across the country? Thousands. And all of them are probably roughly. I mean, probably ain't got as nice a bathrooms as he's got at his track. That's upper class there. But I mean, there's thousands of them. So you take that into effect. That's a lot of money to keep them tracks running and operating. And some of them have curfews and towns that don't like the track, and so you got an uphill battle a lot of times from the start, and that's
Well,
tough.
and that wouldn't be there if we had the relevance up like we once did. I kind of shocked some of the people at the World Racing Group when I was at Volusia when they approved
Mm-hmm.
my media credentials, even though I was a Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was telling them how the demographic we used to reach was a little. Well, I'm not saying that we were low class now because we're not, but you had more of the highfalutin people in the sport. You had more. The clientele wasn't always the country
Yeah.
guy. It
Yeah.
was the city guy. The city guy used to come to dirt, and there used to be bellhops, and people used to dress up to go to the dirt track. So I mean, like I said, it's all kind of a trickle down effect that occurs, and I think, for instance, like how I talk about stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be that foreign for people. I mean, you look at how football commentary is
Yeah,
or basketball
that's true,
commentary.
and
They
it
got
shouldn't
people
be.
saying Tom Brady's overrated,
Oh
and
yeah.
and stuff like that. But that's what causes that. dramatical aspect when people watch the game. They know that if LeBron James misses this shot, that Skip Bayless is going to rip his ass come Monday morning. You know,
Yeah,
they got these dramatical aspects to the sport. And I don't understand how people can't realize that that's one of the aspects that is missing in racing. Everybody's so kiss ass and lovey dovey that there's no dramatical aspects going on for the fan that's watching the race.
and I
I
think
mean,
some of that leads back to they're looking for sponsors. And
right, it's
if you
all
don't have
corporate.
that happy smiley face every freaking minute when you're at the track, even away from the track, it doesn't look good in the sponsor's point of view. They're looking at it, oh, you know.
Well, that's what their perception is, but I guarantee you right now, I don't know who watched Connor and Floyd, but this this new world we live in don't like that political correct crap, and the
Yeah,
corporations are starting to notice that. I don't know if you've seen some of their commercials that they start to roll out, but they're not
yeah,
so politically correct either.
yeah.
We need to wake up to what the actual world's doing instead of trying to copycat NASCAR.
And
So
that's true. And that's one of the things when I was trying to break into NASCAR. I didn't want to be that political correct person, and I wasn't going to be, and that's why I think, well, I'm 100% sure that's why it didn't happen for me, and I'm glad it didn't. The way it worked out, I'm back racing on dirt tracks. I get to race when I want. I'm kind of out of money this week. I guess I have to take it off, even if it's a track I want to be at, or I kind of get to race when I want. And yeah, I get some sponsors. Sure, it's small time, and barely pay me enough to get somewhere sometimes, but I appreciate them. And that's I'm happy about that. But at the same time, like when I was trying, there's like a whole damn schooling they take you through to, oh, you got to be, and I'm too open minded, I guess. I don't know. I sometimes when I get heated up and get pissed off, or just much like you, a subject that I'm passionate about, I'm just gonna say how I see it. And it might not be right,
well,
and I might realize after I've said it, well, shit, I shouldn't have said it like that,
well,
But that's,
and
that happens, and I couldn't be that guy, and I never will be. I'm not gonna be somebody I'm not.
and the other aspect of that is, are you a woman or do you have some kind of nationality in you that isn't white?
Oh
That's a
yeah,
big.
that too was going on.
I was making a joke here recently. I'm like, these white boys running sprint cars. I'm telling you right now, nobody wants them, no matter what. The next thing that's going to happen is one of them's going to go transgender and get some attention and sponsor. You know, I mean,
Yeah. Ugh.
I mean, they're striving for some kind of attention. Nobody's giving it to them. I mean, you
Yeah.
could be the best white boy racer in the world right now. Nobody wants anything to do with you. It feels like, but unless you're the granddaughter or grandson of pilot travel centers or something like that, I mean, so um, it, it, it,
Yeah.
we have the power to do
And
something
that's
about it.
and that's the other thing. Like I love Michael Annette. And I was bringing up like Rich Driver. Obviously Michael Annette's where he's at because of his dad. But he obviously won the 500, which in my opinion, races at Daytona and Talladega are not easy. I wouldn't say they are easy because they're stressful. You got to methodically think stuff out. But those are kind of you always look for underdogs. But I think Michael Annette's going to do good things this year in the Xfinity is the damn word of that
Well,
series.
and that
But
ties into
but
the
what?
Carson Elledge deal.
Yeah,
That
it
so that's
does.
why I've been saying elitist situation in a
Yeah,
way,
and I get
because
you.
it is an elitist situation where it's a bunch of coups and groups on
But
top. It's who's
yeah,
determining who's in what.
that's true. I'd love to have Pilot and Flying J on the side of my car. I bet I won't get them. I know where their money's going. But this,
Now, if you're a granddaughter or something like
yeah,
that,
and that's nothing against them. I obviously they their family worked to earn that, and if they want to do that, that's their deal. But what really pisses me off, especially in NASCAR, and I'm not going to say the name here, but I'm sure everybody will know once I say what happened. But the guy won. His family had a lot of money, won a race at Talladega, got drug tested afterward. Well, what happened when he got drug tested? He got busted, threw it all away. Dad had all the money, won a race, got a drug test. Well, guess what? He tested positive. Threw it all away right there. And I'm sure, and obviously he's not racing this year, at least that I've seen anywhere. I don't know, I haven't really been following, but that's the kind of shit you handed to you on a silver platter and you throw it away. That shit pisses me off. I don't think that's cool. You know what I
no,
mean?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, as far as the drug situation in racing, I mean, there's a lot of things going on that, uh, I mean, I've heard too many things to say it's pick and choose who we want in and want out. But um, there's a lot of things going on there, man. That's just insane. Like I feel real bad for Justin Peck.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because I mean, without the Kevin Ward Jr. situation we talked about earlier, that probably wouldn't have been as big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same time, I think as far as the marijuana scene goes, uh, obviously the laws are changing in the country, and even though I'm not a marijuana smoker myself, I see it as not as bad as an alcohol drink or something like that. And I think that the fix for that is to somewhat start testing for influence or recent usage,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just because the reason it tests in the metabolite, months later, and I know all about this because after the Kevin Ward Jr. situation, I started studying it.
Mm-hmm.
The THC stores in your fat cells just because genetically, for thousands of years, people used it as a food source. So
Mm-hmm.
unlike alcohol or any of these other drugs that your body recognizes as a toxin and gets rid of, marijuana is not recognized as the body as a toxin, so it
It
stores it in the
stores it.
body.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There has to be some
Yeah.
testing changes that need to occur with the marijuana situation. Now,
Yeah.
other drugs,
That's
other states,
probably something that, yeah, it stays in your system longer. So I don't know how they tested, people like that. If they knew it was in their system at that point in time, or just before the race, or days before. But
right?
I get
The
what
other,
you're saying there, especially with like all the laws changing and a lot more states being more lax on that kind of stuff. That people probably will be users and be on the racetrack. Hopefully not while they're using. Hopefully
well,
it's
and
been a day or two, because
that's why I
I
say
don't want to be on no racetrack with anybody using anything. I don't care if it's marijuana, or alcohol, or let alone on the highways. And that's
right,
and
and that's why I say we need to figure out a way to start testing for under the influence or something that can test within recent usage,
yeah.
because that's how all the alcohol tests are. It works with every other drug because your body recognizes those other drugs as toxins and gets rid of them. Same with alcohol.
Hmm.
But with marijuana, we're just dealing with a certain situation that was used
Yep.
as different sources, and your body's not recognizing it as a toxin. And I mean, when you go and dabble into that history, you see how it was basically outlawed so the petroleum industry could take over walks of life.
Mm.
Um, but there's a lot of things going on in that aspect, and even the other drugs and stuff like that. Yeah, they definitely need to be outlawed. But I've heard a lot of stories about drivers getting on Adderall and stuff like that for racing,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's
perfectly
there.
fine to pill, but Adderall is an amphetamine.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just a lot of
There
things
is,
to
and that opens a whole,
consideration.
whole different doors of things there when you bring that up. But like what I was bringing up was, it was cut and dry. NASCAR said just don't use it. Period. Don't care if it's recreational. You have to be in the state of Colorado. Don't use that. And he chose to use it not during the race. I don't know if it was during the. I don't know how they tested. I'm pretty sure he wasn't high on marijuana during the race. Obviously he wasn't, but it was in his system, and so he threw it all. He knew the consequences. He threw it all away. My whole point there was, I don't believe everybody's got a rich dad or mom or whatever that's helping them get into motorsports, and I welcome that. That's good in my point of view. I think that's good for motorsports as long as the kids are understanding, they're willing to work on their race cars. They're not just, well, give it all to me, I'm going to take it. But what I was saying about that exact situation is he just took it, threw it all away. Daddy
Well,
bought him
and
his
if,
way in,
and
and he sponsored him. And guess what? Well, I won the race, but decided to smoke marijuana a couple days ago, and it showed up my test. you know,
well,
that was stupid. That was stupid.
and if he isn't supported by a corporation or something like that, maybe somebody who has a corporational support wants that ride that he's in.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
maybe there's some influence to make sure he's tested. And who knows what? I mean, who knows? I've
Yeah.
heard so many things about the party scene in the actual
Oh yeah.
over there that it's basically pick and choose. You want them in or you want them out, from what I've understood. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm not calling any names or anything like that,
Yeah.
but the party scene over there is definitely healthy. And I don't
yeah.
know, I
I'm
don't
pretty
know,
sure those
I don't,
most.
I don't know how healthy, I don't know how
Yeah.
illegal it is. I don't
Yeah.
know how legal it is. So it's an interesting situation over there for sure. So I mean, yeah, he made a decision, but was who was around him while he made the decision? Was he
Yep.
in the circle with these buddies and that buddies? They're
Oh
this
yeah.
race
That's true.
or
That's true.
this corporation or that
And
corporation,
that's that's
and he's
probably
just
something we'll
one.
never know. But he made a dumb
Exactly.
decision.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. So
Well, anyway, Chaz, we've been chatting for 2 hours here. I don't know if you noticed that, but I, I,
definitely
I,
podcast worthy.
I appreciate your time. I'm going to wrap it up here because I don't want to take too much more of your time because I know you've been going through editing videos and you've probably got some Uber Eats, which I had to Google last night to figure out what that was. I'd heard of Uber, but I never heard of Uber Eats. Probably got some of that to do. Um,
I got to make some gas money so I can
yeah,
get up there to Forsberg,
there
and
you go.
we'll see what happens with Sanders. He said if they race that he'll do it after. If not, we'll do it this weekend. But
Cool.
uh, hopefully they race. I'd like to check out Ocean. I mean, it looks like a
There you
fast
go.
race.
Yeah.
Placerville looks really quick as
Yeah,
well.
that's a good track
You're in
there.
Wyoming. How are you not eaten by the grizzly bears that are up there, or any of those wolf packs? Have you
Well,
gotten it?
I carry around a pistol on my side. We're open carry state, so usually I have a pistol on my side. Of course, if I go into like the post office or bank or something like that, that's got to come off. But we don't have too many grizzlies where I'm at. They're usually up north of us, but I've been charged by a couple before. Um, got wolves. We got the wolves. They're doing a pretty good herd on our deer herds and our elk
Well,
herds. But
yeah. Well, the situation there is just sickening, considering that they did. I don't know how far you are from the Yosemite deal. Uh,
Yellowstone, yeah, I'm about
they
probably about
the
90
state did
miles.
that.
I'm 90 miles south of Yellowstone, but Teton Park is probably about 70 from me. And so that's also, the Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Park, they're like back to back pretty much. So
Well,
yeah,
see, I'm
so
knowledgeable. I'm knowledgeable on the racing subject, but I have
yeah.
some knowledge on a lot of other things as well. And what they did with the wolf situation there in Wyoming is insane. How they brought them in,
Yeah, and
and
it's a tough
now
deal.
they're killing everybody. Now they're killing, not everybody, but they're killing the deer population.
Yeah,
They're
they're
dangerous.
and that's something a lot of people don't realize. They even have an effect on the cougar population. So the mountain lions, you know, ain't getting what they need to get, and they're scared of the wolves. They won't go in because the pack of wolves will attack them. And pack of wolves even attack grizzly bears. They'll gang up. I mean, they usually don't win, but they'll gang up on grizzly bears and try to run a grizzly bear off of a kill.
Well, and the deal is that the wolves are taking the food source from the mountain lion. That's how they're
Yeah,
killing
and
them off.
that's really what's happening. And it's just it's a sad deal. And you got it's a whole another level of politics there. It's a little bit different in the racing world. You got groups that I like to call them city slickers or tree huggers or what have you, gorpers.
I call them Luke Bryant.
Yeah,
I call them Luke Bryant.
yeah, yeah. You
They,
talk
they
about
they say that they're country and they do all this
yeah,
country stuff, but in the end of the day, they're just a big front.
yeah.
They're all
They're just looking for
Austin.
that money, but these groups have the money and they get and they're I don't know where they're all from, but I'm pretty sure they're not from the state of Wyoming. Some of them might live in Jackson Hole or some of these members of these groups. These groups get money from people that live in Los Angeles or New York City that have no clue. I mean, this is something. I literally live. The closest house from me, like my neighbor's, probably a quarter mile away. As the crow flies, that's a straight shot, and I can't really see his house because there's a mountain in the way. But I mean, I live literally on the forest boundary. Like my boundary line ends, the forest boundary starts. So I mean, I live in the woods. Literally, I'm tucked away. I'm 5 miles from the biggest town, the nearest town in Afton. But you know, I see elk deer all the time. And the numbers are tremendously dropped. Especially around from what I used to see all the time around here, and they just have out in the woods. I'm out in the woods, especially during the summer, all the time. And that's a sad thing. But you got these environmental groups that want to, they're getting involved in our
Liberals,
yeah, they're
the
getting
crazy
yeah,
liberals,
it
because
is.
they're
It really
saying
is.
liberals,
And
but
they're getting
it's
involved
the
in our
10%
stuff.
crazy people.
Yeah, and they are, and it's like the Sierra Club. People from Los Angeles that they see it on TV, or think it's like a petting zoo. All these bears and these wolves, they're nice, cuddly animals. No,
No,
no, they're
they're
not.
literal monsters.
In nature,
They're
these things,
literal.
yeah,
They're
these things
monsters.
kill. Yeah,
They're
and
living monsters. It's not the goblins that you got to
no,
worry about. It's living
yeah,
monsters. It's kind of like how kids we're naturally instinctively afraid of the dark, and that's because we were eating kids, especially when we're scared of the dark. Because when we were kids back in the day, that's when just how the lions go after the baby gazelle. They used to go after the baby human too. The
oh
baby
yeah,
human used to always get eaten by wild animals. And
yep.
Hollywood manipulates you into thinking that there's a goblin and makes billions of dollars off of these scared
Yeah, and
what's in the dark. So I
that's the
mean,
thing. And that's what we face every day here. Is you got environmental groups like the Sierra Club or Greater Yellowstone Coalition that get all this money from people that live elsewhere. They're donating thousands and thousands. They're just coming in like crazy, and so they go. And as soon as Wyoming says, "Well, we need to start having wolf hunts, or we need to start maybe hunting the grizzly bears. We've got more than we need," and they hold it up in court. Well, we're taking it to court, and so it goes to federal court, and they get some liberal judge that blocks it. And that's a tough deal. It really is
Yeah, I heard
because
it's
it's
really bad up in.
people that don't even live here are dictating what we that have. I mean, my family settled here. Where I'm at was actually this ground was settled. I mean, it's before my family. In fact, the Indians lived the next canyon over, and my family became good friends with the Indians. In fact, I make it a short story, but my great grandfather traded him a beef cow because they stayed late one winter instead of migrating south, and they was getting hungry. So he traded him a beef cow for a horse, and the horse bucked him off. But yeah, my family basically they settled here. This is probably the only ground I know of in this valley that was actually settled here.
Well, and I've heard the grizzly bear situation. You got the wolf problem there, but the grizzly bear situation in Canada is like twice as worse
Oh
because you
yeah,
had the same liberal situation happen up there where
oh
they
yeah.
outlawed, I think, grizzly hunting, and now the grizzly populations are just, I mean, growing massively and killing and pillaging all different populations, and there isn't nothing to settle out the recourse of the economic ecosystem, in there, the economical world of the wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
And that's
um,
that's the thing. You got people and the people that move in, which mostly in the Jackson Hole area, which is about 60 miles north of me. They move in, and they're these city people who love to ski and they love to get out and mountain bike, and I have nothing against that. That's great. But they're all for. They don't want to see the effects that the grizzly bears, and even the black bears. We're overpopulated with them too, even though we can hunt them. And the wolves have on. They'd much rather have these animals that are carnivores eating up all the plant eating life, like the deer and the elk population. Moose population's dropping, and their excuse for that is, oh, well, they helped change the course of the Yellowstone River. The wolves did because they killed off all these deer and elk that were eating so much of the forage next to it. I mean, for real, where's the common sense there? I mean, where did they come up with this? But they move in. They don't want to see it. They carry around their little bear pepper spray and hope that when a bear charges them, the wind ain't blowing in their face, I guess. But when one of them gets killed by a bear, it's, they turn their face the other way, turn their head the other way. Oh, well, he's on his bike and a bear attacked him, or he was hiking up here and a bear attacked him, or, it's a weird deal. It's like, but you got cattle ranchers and you got people around here that's how they make their living, and you got bears and wolves killing off half their cattle every year. That's a problem. And,
yeah,
and
I
not to mention
mean,
dogs. Domestic dogs get attacked all the time.
oh yeah, they get killed easily
Mm-hmm.
too. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, it's
So
just people who are thinking they can control the illusion. Back to the Hollywood mega house. It's the reason that people think that these things are nice and cuddly is because of the movies
oh
and
yeah.
all this stuff
Yep.
and the
And that's true.
propaganda.
And
So I mean,
that's like the millennials that are coming up. That's been beaten and bred so much into their minds. That it's going to be like the movie The Jungle Book or something. But it's not. I mean, that's how they relate when they're not living like in an area like this. That's until they come here and they still don't. I mean, my favorite thing is like I hate going to Yellowstone and Teton National Parks just because there's thousands of people, tons and tons of people, from all over the world. And I'm a people person, but it's just so crowded. It's like, holy, it'd take you forever to drive, 15 miles takes you like an hour. And
we'll
but but
see it
my
on
but
the
my favorite
schedule.
thing going up there is when people are getting like up close to the buffalo, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, go up, I'm trying to get them to get closer, so I can get it on camera or something. My wife's always like yelling at me, you're gonna get the guy killed, but I'm trying to get up there, get closer, and get a better picture. And usually they can't speak, English, so they don't understand what I'm saying anyway. But that's my biggest thing is I want to see it happen to somebody. I mean, maybe I'm a jerk in that way, but I want to see these people that are so dumb that think you can get out there and pay. Go ahead and do it if you thinks, you know. I mean, where do people get that in their minds that a buffalo that weighs like roughly 2,000 pounds isn't going to charge your ass, or an elk that's in a rut? I mean, a bull elk in rut that's something you don't want to mess with the fall of the year, and people don't understand. How do they not understand that? They just think it's. In fact, I seen
Well,
11,
they probably go on these Yosemite trips, like you were saying there, where
yeah,
everybody's out and you can just walk around and you don't really see a bear, but once or twice a year
yeah.
on these big populated areas, and they're like, "Oh my God, the bear population is so destroyed." Whereas if you're someone like a Adam Greentree, I don't know if you know who that is, but
Heard the name. I don't know who
he
he
kind
is, but
he kind of backpacks through, these areas where there's nobody, and
cool.
in the woods, and you see where these grizzlies are, and they're,
Yeah, natural
these
habitat. Yeah.
actually, yeah, they're out there where they're seeing them grow and start killing everything, and where
Mm-hmm.
the actual hell on earth is actually located,
Yeah.
and they're the ones saying y'all are crazy. Get off the beaten path where everybody's at and come see what's going on behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just and that just shows the power of media, man. That power of media that I'm trying to elude with the dirt track world. That's the perception. I
Yeah,
mean, you
it's
got
true. That is true.
so the
That's very
power of
true.
media is enabling all of this to occur. So, and even like with that situation, there's a lot of situations where reality and truth and perception is completely mixed up and changed
Yep.
because of the mainstream media control on the herd that is the human being. So,
Yeah. Well, another
um,
funny thing before we close this up, I wanted to bring up something that's funny is that Yellowstone Park has like these things where you can do like little surveys on, what you liked about the park. And I don't know how true this one is, but just knowing the kinds of people that come through here from what I call city slickers and tree huggers, it wouldn't surprise me. But there was one they supposedly got back that said, "Dear Yellowstone National Park park rangers, please train your bears to come out so we can see them. We didn't see a single bear in our whole trip."
there you go. We need
Yeah.
more bears. Stop
Yeah,
shooting.
train those bears, dang it. Train them to come
Not,
out.
if y'all weren't allowed to hunt them, we would see one or two.
Yeah. Well, we
If
ain't allowed to
we
hunt the grizzly bears, so
if you can't
yeah.
shoot them, you can't shoot them, you'd be all right, so
Yeah, well, it's just people that just don't understand and they're kind of arrogant about it sometimes, but that's the way it is with a lot of things, obviously, even in racing. You know what I mean?
don't speak up against, the speaker, or you'll get, suspended like Robert Ballou was. So that's the one thing about
Yeah.
Tony Stewart is you can see his hypocrisy that he has a lot, because I mean Robert Ballou did a Tony Stewart and got the
Yeah,
hammer from
that's
the guy
true.
who made that cool and trendy,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a big ordeal. Sorry, I brought Tony Stewart up because I saw there's a meme going around about
Oh,
how he basically what I've been saying, and
I
everybody's
haven't
crazy.
seen that yet, but I'll get
Well,
to
it's
it.
it's it's the meme with this quote from that story
The
that
one we
they
talked about earlier, huh? Yeah, basically what you've been saying. Well,
right.
all right, Chaz. Hey, man, I appreciate talking with you. I'm going to let you go. I know you're busy. I know you're trying to stay busy down there in California and get to where you can see some more good racing down there in the Southwest. So that'll be cool for you. And I appreciate your time. And you ever need anything, you know where to find me, man. And keep up the good fight, man. Keep on trying to keep on and get this. Let's get this dirt track stuff promoted a little better than what it already is, and just try to keep things better for everybody on the dirt world side of things.
Yeah, definitely. And I may come up that way. It's not that far, so we'll see. I heard there ain't too many dirt tracks up in that area, but
No, it's pretty desolate here. That's the one thing that sucks for me racing on dirt, or even if I wanted to race pavement tracks now. But my closest dirt track's about 11 hours away that I can race. Well, I got a 600 right now, micro. So the ones that race that series about 11 hours away. So yeah, I get quite the journey on me. I got another one I think they're going to do over in Boise, so that's about 6 hours away. So if they open that up for micros, that'll be good. But that's still, I don't have very many choices on which tracks I'm going to hit when I decide I'm going racing for the weekend.
yeah, there's some people up in Skagit saying I should go up to that ordeal they got going on, and then there's some other people saying I need to go to Iowa, and apparently there's a big post about me going to PA, and everybody's like, screw that guy, fucking. But no, I mean, so maybe we'll have us another trip across the country to do and whoop some ass, but
Well, there you
uh,
go. There you
we'll
go,
see.
buddy.
We'll see what happens.
Well, thanks, Chaz. I appreciate your time, man. You take care and have a great day.
Whoop some ass on the debate table.
There you
Let's
go.
clarify, because I never threatened anyone with a fight. Just to make that clear, ever.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
got you. No,
coming
I know
after.
what you mean. You post about, just want to talk to you face to face. I know what you mean. You bet,
All right.
buddy. All right, have a good day, man. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. It was a good talk. I enjoyed the hell out of it. You take care.
No problem. And if somebody wants to support what I'm doing, I don't go the corporate route. I kind of do it how I hope the dirt world can do, and that's with people who want to watch and support the shows. I
You
mean, I
bet.
got a Patreon and stuff like that, but uh, just follow Dirt Track State of Mind. Hit us a message anytime somebody can support the show. If you got a product or a racetrack or anything you want to reach out there with me, then we can do that as well. Or if you just want to support as a fan because you like what I'm trying to do, that's how I keep it going. And then of course the Uber Eats that we're going to be doing tonight. So
Heck yeah,
uh,
there you go.
anybody who wants to help out, you just send us a message and we'll get you involved somehow.
You bet. Well, thanks, Chaz. I appreciate it, buddy. And hopefully, bring some more awareness and people help you out and keep up the good cause, brother.
We'll try.
All right, have a good one, buddy. So there it is, everybody. Chaz Thompson right there, Dirt Track State of Mind. Man, what a talker. We talked with him for about little over 2 hours. Um, that was very interesting. I enjoyed talking with him. And although I don't see a majority of the things that I don't understand or agree with the majority of the things he's saying sometimes. And, I give the guy a benefit of the doubt, and I wanted to talk with him, kind of see what makes Chaz Thompson tick. What is his goal? And I kind of already had my own assumptions before we talked with Chaz today. But I'm pretty sure now that my assumptions were correct, that dirt tracks and dirt track racing is something Chaz is very passionate about. And you could see that he helped doing promotions and announcing at Devil's Bowl Speedway. He got a good understanding of the overhead that goes into these dirt tracks all across the country and stuff like that. So he really knows, and he's really passionate about that. And I believe he is. He stirs up a lot of stuff, gets a lot of people pissed off at him, and that is definitely a given. In fact, I had tons of people. I kind of mentioned I was thinking about interviewing the guy because there's been some things Chaz said that have downright pissed me off too. And I'm not going to deny that. He knows that, and I haven't agreed with him 100% on it. But then sometimes he does a lot of these videos, and sometimes towards the end of the video, it's like, well, I do agree with that. I might not agree with the majority of the video, but he's got some stuff, and I think he's got an understanding. But he's willing to fight for it. I mean, this is something that's at heart for Chaz. He loves dirt tracks, dirt track racing. And, I love all forms of racing. That's what I wanted to get out there with him is, look, I love NASCAR just as much as I do dirt tracks. Now, I'd rather be driving on the dirt tracks. I think they're 10 times more fun to drive than anything on asphalt. Nothing against the asphalt guys. I just enjoy it a little more. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I had the right opportunity, somebody's going to give me a bunch of money to get in a late model on asphalt, or hopefully get back into some NASCAR side of things, K&N or Truck Series. If for the right deal, I'd probably take it. I'm to the age now where I don't like spending a lot of time away from my family or on the road, and that's dirt track is where I want to be, and I enjoy doing it. But and I think Chaz understood that, I like all forms of racing. I'm a motorsports freak. It doesn't matter what it is. I want to drive it. I want to race it. I want to watch it. And, I'm constantly involved with watching all forms of motorsports. I mean, I'm constantly. My wife just loves the heck out of it, trust me. But I see where he's trying to go. I don't know how exactly a lot of the times he's going to get there because, like I said, there's a lot of tracks out there that are barely making it now. And if you put all the focus on one and not the other, you got problems. I mean, it's a big deal. I think the biggest thing, and don't get me wrong, like Mav TV does an excellent job. I love watching all their stuff they do for dirt track racing. It's excellent. And you got other forums you can reach out there to, like Racing Boys or Dirt Vision or stuff like that. But I think where all that started tapering off, and I really do, I think even though it was cable TV to get the Nashville Network or what was TNN back in the day, I'm pretty sure it's Thursday Night Thunder, Saturday Night. I can't remember. I used to watch it when I was a kid. And you could watch USAC races. They were constantly doing USAC races, World of Outlaw races. It was always on there, and they were promoting it. And, it was live. I mean, I think the last real true blue, Speed Vision might have done a few more after that. But the last one that I really watched live was probably 2000 or 2001 World of Outlaws at Bristol. I mean, I might have watched a couple after that were live on TV, but, and that's the thing. But until people start, and people are starting to step further and further away from cable and getting more involved in and doing stuff like what are they, Roku's, whatever, the Roku I think is what it's called, stuff like that, and maybe that's a route to go. But until then, I mean, it'd be just huge. It really would be. It'd be huge if World of Outlaws or USAC and all these could get some TV time, national TV through regular TV. CBS, NBC, or ABC, something like that. ESPN even. You know, ESPN. Nothing against the guys at ESPN, but they really do think that the whole racing world is a joke. They don't think racing is a sport. I mean, that's been a given over the last few years of some of the stuff that I remember back in the day, man. Used to have like RPM today, RPM tonight. ESPN was excellent, except for there was a couple guys that the only time they wanted to talk about NASCAR, they wanted to talk about Dick Trickle, mostly because of his name. But even when he wasn't doing good, they wanted to talk about him just so they could say his name. But I really believe Chaz is trying to do good things. Some of it could stir some stuff up and could be bad for motorsports as a whole. I don't think he means it to be. I think he just wants to see his sport, his side of motorsports that he loves, succeed. And I have to, I'm kind of a fan of a guy like that in a way. Even though there's times he says things that I'm just like, dude, why are you saying this? You're gonna stir up a whole hornet's nest. Obviously, he don't care, and it's heartfelt. And as you could see, this 2-hour interview we done with Chaz, it really is. And I believe he's telling it how he sees it. And sometimes he ain't worried about the political correctness side of things. As you can see, he'll just say it how he sees it. And I think it was great. I'm sure I'm going to get some haters on here after this, and it is what it is. I got to give every guy a benefit of the doubt. And all the racing that I've been doing or trying to do the last few years, I can honestly say I haven't been to a track where there's been somebody that I've wanted to fight or hate or any of that afterwards. I mean, all these short tracks and racing and stuff, usually we're all one big family. And all I've seen the last few months, a lot of people just totally attacking Chaz for some of the things he says, and I understand it. I can see sometimes why. But I'm going to give Chaz the benefit of the doubt, and that's why I wanted to talk with him today. And I can see he's really a good dude. He's just he drove clear across the dang country to get to California so he could go watch races at Stockton and Delta. I mean, and he's doing all he can to get money because he just wants to be involved and be around racing. And I really excited that there's somebody out there that's willing to just put it on the sleeve and just go to town, and if people are hating on him or constantly cutting them down, even though majority of the people probably don't agree with some of the things they say, but at least he's got the balls to go out and do it. And that's what makes me really I think good job, Chaz. That really is something that shows his character, and I think I'm impressed with that in a way, because he don't care. He'll show up. Oh yeah, call me out. I'll be there next week, and he did it. He did it. He went there, and I hope that Chaz can turn some things around and for himself too. I hope maybe even though he doesn't like being political correct all the time, maybe he ought to think things through a little bit. But either way, I usually laugh at most of the stuff he says, even when I don't agree with it, and I get a kick out of some of the stuff he posts, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So thanks for the interview today, Chaz, and I hope everybody enjoys this interview. 2 hours long, so I hope everybody enjoys it.